Friends, fans, and fine folk, grab your drinks and snacks and come on down to the campfire for this wonderful short rest with my good friend Paul on that side of me. God damn it, why do I always get it wrong? I should just think you're on the window side and then go that way. There we go.
There you
That'll
go.
help. How you going, Paul?
Yeah, I'm doing well. I've definitely been better. I'm currently here battling COVID. However, I loaded up on drugs, slept all day, saved my energy for right now. So I'm doing as best as I can. You get the best couple hours of my day right now.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see if we can get the most out of you. But if anybody feels like this guest's a little bit under the weather, it's because he's a little bit under the weather. So don't hold it against him. I'm just going to. I've just decided I'm going to flip your. I'm going to transform you, flip you horizontally. There we go.
Yeah.
There we go. Just because now we're both facing inwards on the camera. There we go.
That makes sense.
So campfire. We're around a camp. Well, I'm not going to make that decision for us. Actually, we're going to make that decision together. We're doing a short rest. What situation are we in that we need a short rest? Are we out on a quest? Are we in a dungeon? Are we in the Underdark? Are we in space? Are we at sea? Are we in a forest, desert?
My first when you first started saying that, my first reaction was that we're in a dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
And we've set up
like an actual dungeon with like walls and torture chambers and things. That sort of a like the dungeon
like straight like medieval castle kind of thing.
Cool. So we're in a dungeon. We're having a short rest.
We set up an alarm spell along the doors.
Oh yeah, nice.
Yeah.
Alarm spell
So
around
no
the
one
doors.
can-
So we're in an actual like dungeon room. We've managed to find a secret enough room.
Yeah.
Have we got a campfire going, or are we trying to keep low key?
No, we've actually found a hearth where
nice.
there's some burnt out charcoal, and we've had some tinder and some wood there that we were able to start a small fire in that hearth.
Nice. All right. So we've got a little fire going. What are we eating and drinking on this short rest? You got some ale, got some beer. I mean, it's on brand.
It is on brand for Hops and Dragons. There's a little tiny bit of ale left over in my flagon. We've been in here for a few days. I've rationed it out, and I've actually trapped some small critters before we went in. So
oh, nice.
I'm eating some roasted squirrel.
Roasted squirrel. Oh yeah, nice. I've never had that in real life, but let's hope that it's good. Have you ever eaten squirrel?
I have not.
Anybody in the chat ever eaten squirrel? I'm interested to know. And thank you for the hype train, by the way. Lots of hype going on. Appreciate it.
I don't know why, but I would imagine that it's probably a pretty lean meat.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like, I mean, with them being relatively small, you wouldn't expect you'd get a lot of meat out of it.
Mm.
Roasted squirrel on a stick, yeah, of course. Of course.
Oh.
New York GM is currently pushing the hype train by a little bit at a time, trying to get up to 69%, because we're sitting at 68% with 30 seconds left.
Nice.
Oh, Captain Lady Rachel ruined it by gifting a whole sub to the community. And now we've got 35 gifted. Now we're up to 75%. You're going to have to get up to level 5. Quick, finish level 4, and then you get another shot at it.
Our milestones are 96 because that's a huge inside joke on the Hops and Dragons world. So,
squirrel's good if you cook it in long enough with herbs, says Fulio. Good to know.
I can imagine it being good in a stew. Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah.
Right. So that's it. We're eating squirrel stew.
So we're eating squirrel stew. All right, and drinking some leftover ale and stuff. I like it. So that's our short rest that we've set up for that. Let's start with. I usually like to start with the name. So yours is fairly self-explanatory. Hops and Dragons came about because you were both just, I assume, big fans of beer and Dungeons and Dragons.
No, actually, we really like jumping.
Okay, right. You're like, we want to mix hopscotch into D&D.
Yeah, appropriate on Easter for bunnies hopping. No,
True.
So if you want to go like way back, I work in digital marketing for years, and I spent basically all of my days, all of my time during the day creating content or doing marketing, advertising, everything for other people, other brands, other creators, kind of thing. And I had this itch to be, because you can never really do what you want, because you always have to get approval. You can't really push edges if you want. It's a little bit restricted. So I always wanted to do something that was a little bit more. I had a little bit more creative control over, which is funny because I never thought that I would be a creative. I never considered myself a creative person.
Right.
So I kind of floated the idea around to a few friends of like, hey, I think this is a really fun idea to sit down and like debate and like have a drink while we do it. And then, the spin on it is that you get sponsors for, whatever the beer is, or if it's
Yeah.
whiskey or something like that kind of thing. Right. Anyway, so after nobody really picking up kind of thing, I talked to my co-founder, Tilly, who's I think is in the chat here now.
Sup, Tilly?
And he said, I didn't really care about the topic. I was like, well, we'll do, it doesn't matter, but this is the framework that I want to do. And he said, okay, well, what if we do it D&D? And I said, sure, if you're up for it, let's do it. I'll do it in D&D. And then I learned a lot about D&D.
I bet.
So I'd been playing D&D, I think, for maybe 3.5 years or something like that, and I've learned more in the year and a half that we've been doing Hops and Dragons than I did in the entire time before that I was playing. So
you were playing
yeah.
before. So you had played D&D when Tilly said, "Let's do it about D&D."
Yeah, so he actually asked me to play in high school. So we've known each other for 22 years, maybe, I think it is. So basically since grade 8, and he asked me to play in high school, and my reaction was, no, that's for nerds. And then went on to play World of Warcraft for 15 years. So like, come on now. And anyway, so we had basically, because of his schedule being away, working in construction and everything like that, we didn't spend as much time as we did, as much as I wanted to. So when he asked me to play, I was like, I don't care what it is. If I get to see you some more, I'll do it. So I signed up and said, yep, I'll play. And we got a couple other people, and that was in January of 2017, I think it was.
There's
maybe
so many people started around then. A lot of my guests
Yeah.
started around 16, 17.
Yeah, which is, I mean, I think that's kind of where it took off, eh? 5th edition did.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, so then we started play, and I created a wood elf ranger, because my character in World of Warcraft, my main character, was a night elf hunter. And apparently I can't do anything original, so I had to do that.
Gotta start the same character. I mean, if you're enjoying the character,
Yeah.
makes sense. A lot of people start with their first character in D&D is based on something from media that they like. Like
for sure.
I've tried to create a Sherlock Holmes in D&D before, and that was before
Nice.
That was before the rogue subclasses of like the Mastermind and the Inquisitor as well. So it wasn't.
Yeah. I think that's the and spoilers are getting ahead of myself now, but I think that's the character that Tilly created for his first character he created for the campaign that I started to run.
All right, nice.
So
it's a good, fun character idea. I just want to say to Tilly that I only just heard in the prep right now that you're home this weekend, and I don't know why I didn't think to ask you in case you were home. I wasn't shunning you or anything. You were absolutely welcome to come on as well. I apologise for not reaching out to you as well. I just know that you're more often than not away from home and unable to have as quite a flexible a schedule. So
I don't think the two of us could fit in this box, though.
Well, I do have different screens for 2 guests, 3 guests, 6 guests, because I once had a short rest with 6 different people on.
Oh wow!
Yeah, I was chatting with the guys from One for All, Deerstalker Pictures, the guys who make the One for All D&D YouTube. Yeah. And I had the 4 actors, the director, writer, and like the producer, all on. What did Paul do to his thumb? What did you do to your thumb, Paul?
Oh, I didn't think I showed that. So what I tell people is that I heard it at hockey. Because I'm Canadian, I play hockey. Not all of us do, despite what I'm sure everybody around the world thinks. But what the true... I mean, that's not a lie. It's just kind of a bending of the truth.
You make it sound like you hurt it playing hockey, but you've said at hockey, which makes me think you were just like at a hockey game picking your nose or something and broke it.
That's exactly what it was. I play twice a week, and on the Wednesday skate, our dressing room is up one floor up, so we had to go downstairs to get to the ice level. I had my full gear on going down the stairs. It's a little bit of an older building, and the rubber grip on the stairs I think was gone, and I just hit wood and skates just, and I fell down the stairs. And thankfully I had full armor on, but the gloves obviously they're fully articulated, and I think I bent my thumb back. It's not broken, but it's sprained, and I got to keep that on for like 4 to 6 weeks. So it's been about 4 weeks
And
now.
that was like at the start of the game. So
Yeah, it was at the beginning of the game. I still played.
you still
So,
played with a sprained foot. Oh god.
yeah.
What position do you play? I don't know much about hockey, but
Generally forward, a winger, left winger usually.
right.
Yeah, you don't want me on defense. I'll tell you that much.
How long you been playing hockey?
I played since I was younger, but only like, grade 8, grade 7, grade 8 kind of thing, but only ever shinny. So in the last maybe 10 years has only been when I started to play a little bit more professionally. So, and by professionally, it's still rec, but it's a little bit more competitive, I guess. Not
Right.
professionally,
How many on a hockey
more
team?
competitively. We have 13 on our team. So, but not everybody shows up all the time. So you've got five out plus your goalie, and then you usually want at least one change for your forwards, for your three forwards, and at least one change for your defense. So that would be, what's that? 3, 36. Yeah, so you want at least 10
Right.
skaters plus your goalie.
That's fun.
But I have missed my hockey games over the last week because of my highly contagious
Yeah.
pathogen in my system.
Because of this lurgy that you've currently got going on.
Yeah.
So Hops and Dragons, you told us about the start of it. You just wanted to. You knew you had the format for it. You wanted to drink beer and get sponsored by them, and then talk about something. And D&D was the obvious choice. How did it begin? And sorry, how did it begin in like comparison to where it is now? What's evolved over the time that you've been doing it? What's the biggest changes that's happened?
Well, there was no dancing for subs at the beginning.
Yeah, for those who don't know, I went on Hops and Dragons for a chat a little while ago, and every time there's a sub comes in, there's music plays, and everybody has to dance. So, and I was there for like, how long was my stream with you? Like 5 hours? Was
5
it?
hours.
5 hours. 5 hours of dancing every time a sub comes in. It's good.
Yeah, we end up losing a lot of calories, I guess. So we burn off the calories of whatever we drink in beer. So, yeah.
Other than that, is it mostly like the same format as when you began?
Well, we've added a bunch of things. We've taken away things that didn't work. But for anybody that doesn't know, the structure of the show is when Tilly's home and we're able to sit down. It's pretty much, we sit down, we chat. We go through the news from the D&D world. We cover some community news, some streamer D&D news as well. We at the beginning of every single episode we roll for a trinket, just like you would when you're creating a new character. Do a little bit of role play. All this is kind of like warming up as well to like get to the later discussions. So we have some fun stuff like that. And another thing we do, like we try to keep it a little bit light and fun, obviously. There's enough negativity on the internet that we want to keep it a little bit more positive. So yeah, we've got a CR monster battle segment as well, where we put 2 monsters of the same CR against each other. Tilly takes one. Yeah, it's a ton of fun actually.
Yeah,
and
I've seen that one. Highly recommend. A lot of fun. The one I tuned in first to for that one, the first one I seen of it was CR2, I think, and it was a reduced threat carrion crawler and a yellow ochre, a yellow ooze, and a yellow jelly or something, whatever they're called. And
do you remember which one won?
Well, they both won because the first one, the one that actually won, the first one, I think was I can't remember which one it was actually, but it was whichever one won. It was because you got a crit on the first hit and just straight up annihilated the other one in one shot, and then you just kind of like sat there for a second and went, "Should we play again?" Just for fun.
Yeah, and that happens sometimes. Like that's the thing, and that kind of showcases one, and we've talked about this before as well. Is how CR is kind of useless really at the end of the day. But also like the cool part about D&D is that the dice rolls kind of really dictate how it goes, right?
Yeah,
So, and that's what we've discovered
and
after a year and a half
that's,
of doing it.
I think that's why CR is useless, because I still use it, I still reference it, but
Yeah.
it's definitely just a rule of thumb thing. Like you grab a general feeling of like, I want this to be a difficult threat, therefore I'm going to look at this range of anything CR9 to CR13 or whatever. Like you don't
Yeah.
just go like single digits. You don't use it as a granular thing, but you use it as a rule of
Yeah.
thumb.
Yeah.
Because the dice can swing by 20 different numbers on every single roll. And if you get a streak of numbers under 5 as your attacks or whatever, then suddenly that challenge rate in 10 it becomes a challenge rate in 5.
Like the time that I killed Tilly's first character in session 2 with a CR1 Toad because he crit.
God. It's so
And
easy to kill early level
me as a
characters.
new but me as a new DM, I was excited that I got a crit, and I was like, oh shit, I shouldn't be excited when I get a crit as a DM anymore.
Yeah.
So I couldn't even fudge the roll afterwards. He was just like, no, I know that was a crit.
Because you
Roll
got
your
to, I
damage.
saw it on your face. Yeah, nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah, lesser creatures in greater numbers can be a deadly threat. Yeah, for sure. It's a tough one to understand CR, and as much as I rag on it for being useless, I don't think I can't think of a better thing that serves the same purpose of like telling you at a glance this is a dangerous monster or this is not. It works for what it is, as long as you have the experience as a dungeon master to know not to rely on it too much.
I think, and I wonder if Wizards is kind of like apprehensive about letting go of it. I think because they're kind of like, this is the CR, this is the CR, this is the CR, as opposed to, hey, this is just a guide.
Yeah.
I think it'd be a lot better that if in the next update, or people are calling it 5.5 E, but they kind of say, hey, if they don't get rid of it altogether or replace it, it'd kind of be like, hey, this is just a guide.
Yeah.
Or do a range like you were saying, kind of thing.
Yeah,
So
it
I
might
don't know.
be. I think the only way I can imagine it changing is if they do like they swap it out for something that's more of just like a range, like tiers. Like they've already got the tiers implemented into the game. Tier 1 is from levels 1 to 4. Tier 2 is 5 to 10. Strangely, it's 6 levels instead of 4. I've never understood that. I don't know why they go 4 levels, 6 levels, 6 levels, 4 levels, but whatever. They've got the different tiers of gameplay, and I feel like the challenge rating could be replaced by this is a tier 1 monster, or this is a tier, or like even just like this is a tier 2 mob or a tier 1 boss. They could explain things, because like a challenge rating 3 to 5 are usually great challenge ratings for low level boss ending campaign situations. Like you've got a, let's come up with what's a challenge rating 5 monster, Shambling Mound or something. Shambling Mound's level 5, I think, and if you were to use that against like at the end of your first arc of the campaign, where you're levels 1 and 2 maybe, then you've got to really work hard to not die against it. But then once you get to like level 7, 8, 9, you can use like 2 or 3 Shambling Mounds as the prep for your boss. So I think that could be a way to do it in future editions. Is that it says, instead of challenge rating, it says tier 1 fodder, tier 2 tier 1 boss, tier 2 fodder, or something like that.
Yeah, and you you mentioned that the 4, 6, 6, and 4 levels. Is that for PCs? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah. So in the tiered gameplay, they say that tier 1 is from levels 1 to 4 for the PCs. If your PC becomes level 5, you enter tier 2 of gameplay, and up to level 10. And then once you hit a level 11, you're now in tier 3 gameplay, which goes through to 16. And then once you hit level 17, you're now in tier 4 gameplay. And they talk about it as being like for tier 1, you are a local hero. Tier 2 is kind of like, you should be kind of like a regional hero. Tier 3 is like a countrywide or national hero, and then tier 4 gameplay, when you're level 17 and above, you're like a global hero. You've got teleportation all over the globe. You've got level 9 spells, all of that stuff.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the higher levels, but I'm thinking that the level, because level 5 changes most classes a lot.
Yeah,
so
level
that one
5
makes
is
sense.
a huge change. Level 17 is a huge change because people get access to level 9 spells, and they're like a lot of capstone abilities start coming in level 17, 18. But I would have just assumed that it followed the same progression as the proficiency bonus. Every 4 levels, your proficiency bonus goes back up. It does feel like a big change to go from 8 to 9, because once you get to 9, you get level 5 spells, which is a pretty big change. Like level 5 is like quite powerful spells. You
That's
get
a
an
good
extra
point.
proficiency bonus, and a whole bunch of stuff. So I don't know why they made it 40 years of gameplay instead of 5, but whatever.
Who knows the decisions that they make?
Yeah, I know, right? So we talked about 5.5. So let's get your speculations on it. What do you think's going to change, and what do you hope's going to change?
To be honest, I think that CR is going to go under a huge. It's got to. I mean, it's the one thing that everybody complains about. I think the CR is going to change. I think that a lot of the changes that they've been leaning into over the last couple, over the last couple months and year, about making monsters easier to run,
Yeah,
removing spell slots and all that kind of stuff
yeah,
from monsters. I think that's the way that they're going to go for everything, and I think they're going to streamline it even more. So the change, I guess, from earlier editions to fifth edition, kind of like pruning different things and making
yeah,
the barrier to entry easier or lower, I guess, because of the success that fifth edition has had. I can't see why they wouldn't say, hey, look at all the things we did in fifth edition that made this popular, whether or
yeah.
not it was because of the system or because of pop culture or anything like that. I can't see why they wouldn't double down on the things that they did in fifth edition that made fifth edition good.
So they'll make it even more streamlined. Like they'll pare back even more complexity.
I think so, because realistically, and I'm DMing now for two different sessions, two different games, and I've learned a lot going from a player to a DM. And as a player, it's fairly easy for me to kind of grasp.
Yeah,
As a DM, it's a lot more, and I feel like if you want more DMs to pick up the game so you can have more players, because you can find players everywhere.
yeah.
I think that needs to be a little bit easier to do, for people that really want to grasp it, and not just kind of like, hey, let's just do it, we'll roll some dice and make it up kind of thing, right?
Right.
So, which is a valid play style. I've played with people that do that before.
Do you reckon they would ever go into two concurrent editions like they did right at the beginning with D&D and Advanced Dungeons and Dragons? Do you reckon they'd ever do like Advanced Fifth Edition
So
for the
I had
people
this conversation.
for the people who want more crunch and the people who want more rules?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think they would, but that's just intuition and not based on
Yeah,
anything. But I had this conversation recently with somebody, and it's the idea of supporting a previous edition. And I think they were talking about putting out publishing content for older editions, first, second, third, etc., kind of thing. And I don't think that they'll ever do that, because they've accepted, like, why would they move on if they still think that they want to support one edition kind of thing?
yeah.
So I really don't think that Wizards will ever support an older edition, or two concurrently again. I don't think.
I don't see them supporting older editions, and same. I don't really think that they would do two editions at once, but I think that they possibly should, because I do know that there are two very different wants from D&D. There are people who get into D&D because it's fifth edition, I should say, because it's relatively simple and straightforward compared to earlier editions. They get into it, and then once they're into it, they're asking questions about, oh, what do I do if I want to drag this guy who's tied up or whatever, and there's not like the greatest rules around that. It's kind of like a lot of the rules are hand waved around specifics. They go, they come across a moment in the game where they go, what's the rule around how this particular thing interacts with this particular thing, and it's like there isn't one. And
Yeah, and
there's a need for crunch sometimes, that people go, well, I want a rule for that. I don't want to have to make up something and remember it and be consistent. I want the rules to say how that works.
and that's a really good point too, because I'm when I DM, I always refer to the rule instead of like, if there's a rule for it, we'll go with it. Otherwise, I'll just kind of make it up. And I love the fact that there's rules there that you can kind of manipulate into a certain situation, like just the idea of like fall damage. If someone gets tossed into a wall, you can kind of like, okay, well, how far were they thrown for, and you do the math on it and kind of do that kind of thing. So you can take rules from one spot and apply it to another spot. And I like, see, I don't really consider that crunch, because it's all optional to me. I think crunch would be like, making the attacks and the regular actions and everything that you would do on your turn a lot more noodly is what we call it. So
Right, when you get when you've got like pluses to remember from this, that, and the other,
yeah,
lots of different numbers.
and Thaco.
Yeah, yeah. I don't know. I just think that I've heard it from a few people that have played D&D for a long time, especially like over several editions. They say that there's definitely like a cycle that happens of crunch to simplified, of like noodly to none, and and when there's an edition out that is super crunchy or noodly, is crunchy noodles, they there's a drive towards it being like, oh, this is just too much and too complicated, too much maths, let's simplify everything. And then they bring out something like 5th edition, and now so many people play 5th edition that there's a huge niche, almost oxymoronic. There's a huge niche of people who are like, I want more. I want more rules. I want more. A bit, like, I don't just want advantage. You see an increasing number of people who are using double advantage and things because they're like, advantage isn't enough. Like you can still easily miss. Or like even with advantage, the maximum you can roll is 20, and they're like, no, I want something where I can really, increase my attack and stuff. So I do see quite a demand for. I'm not sure exactly how worldwide the demand would be, but I do see a demand for crunchy numbers, and I was like, instead of doing this cycle of like making a simplified edition and then a number heavy edition, I wondered if they would ever just acknowledge the fact that you're always going to have that demand on both sides, that you can have concurrently, like they did at the very beginning, have an edition that is like extended rules. Whenever they bring out a new edition, they always start with the Player's Handbook, Dungeon Master's Guide, and Monster Manual. If they also then the fourth book they release was just like advanced rules, that was just then people can play with the simplified version of the whatever, or they can pick up the advanced rules and go like, let's get into it.
Yeah, and to be honest, now that if you explain it that way, then that's I'm not really against that because it gives you that you don't need the advanced rules to play.
Yeah.
At all. But if you want,
that's how I see it working if they ever did go that route. Yeah.
Yeah, oh for sure. The and this is, I mean, I've only ever played 5th edition, so I'm a little bit excited, but also fearful of a new a new D&D system to come out. So I don't know how that will change if I'll continue just doing do 5th edition. And there was a question there in chat, Lorquin, I think it is, if it will 5.5e work with 5th edition, and I think that's a big question for a lot of people. And I don't know how it worked for 3.5e if that worked with 3rd edition.
Well, they've not officially called it 5.5. The reason everybody else is calling it 5.5 is that they specifically said it's going to be compatible with 5e. So they said the new, what was the exact wording? They said the new
update, wasn't it?
No, it wasn't the word update. It was essentially a synonym for update, but it was like the new wave of D&D, the new generation. I don't think they said generation. Then they said I'm trying to remember the exact word because sometimes it's important and gives you hints. But they said like the new generation of D&D is coming in 2024, and it'll be compatible with 5th edition, which is why everybody's saying like, oh, it's essentially 5.5 rather than 6th edition.
Yeah, no, fair enough.
And I think it will. I think it will be, but it'll have the changes of the same trends that we've seen over the last few months.
The word that they use is evolution. The next evolution.
The next evolution of D&D. There you go. I knew it was something like generation. The next evolution of D&D is coming in 2024, and it'll be backwards compatible. So people are like, oh, it'll be all of the same like rules, all the same core rules, but they will have just different versions of monster stat blocks and things, I imagine.
Yeah. So here's a question then in the same vein. Do you ever think that they'll stop releasing editions? Do you think that they'll ever get to a point where...
That's the thing, isn't it? That's what a lot of people are saying about 5th edition, even, that it's like they're just releasing more and more modules and versions and alternate rules and new monsters and stuff. I'm not sure if they'll ever get to a point where they stop releasing editions, because there's almost like a human desire, human tendency to want to start again. Like people who, like, how many times have you started a video game again if you haven't finished it yet? Like the number of times I started Pokemon on the Game Boy or whatever. Like you play through the openings because you get some way into it, and then you're thinking about, oh, if we could do this again from the beginning. I think there's always going to be a desire. Hey, Lord Gazumbra, how's it going? I think there's always going to be a desire for a change in the rules that is so fundamental that they have to do another edition. Like if they ever get to a point where they have to, like they're already kind of removing alignment and the importance of alignment from everything. If they ever get to a point where they want to remove the importance of the 6 stats, or they want to introduce a 7th stat, or they want to change the fact that the stats and the modifiers are 2 different things, if they ever want to change the health, the HP system, and introduce like a stamina system or anything, like if they want to make any fundamental change, then that's going to have to be a new edition, and I think there's always going to be a desire for that.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
But I think the editions are more likely to get longer and longer before the next edition comes out, because they've committed so much to it.
So what's the scary part then about about a new edition, for having gone through it?
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, I've only ever played 5th edition as well, which is why it's scary to me that the prospect of a new edition is because like I've invested so much in this, and I know 5th edition so well. I know the rules, like I know obscure rules and how they interact with one another and stuff. And it's kind of scary to be like, once 6th edition comes out, I've got to start again from scratch. And will I have the time? Will I have the same time to put into it as I did when I was learning 5th edition? And will I lose my title of being like a nerd that knows everything about the rules? And will I have a harder time running games in 6th edition because now I've got 5th edition mucking up how I remember the rules work? I think one of the reasons that I know 5th edition rules so well is because I never had anything clouding those rules in my mind about, oh no, wait, is that how it worked in 4th edition? Oh, is that 3rd? I've played with dungeon masters who have played 4th and 3rd and whatever, who they when 5th edition first started and we were playing, they would talk about like, oh, you can't they were talking about death saves and things, and if you hit 0 but it comes from necrotic damage, you don't get death saves, you're just dead. And I was like, it doesn't say that in the rules. And he's like, oh, isn't it? And then we looked it up, and oh yeah, that must have been an earlier edition thing. So it's things like that I'm scared about, that I'm like apprehensive that when it does come out, I'll be mistaking all kinds of rules left, right, and center with 5th edition. But
I'm interested too, because it's see, this is the beautiful part that I love about D&D, is that like I've incorporated 4th edition rule. I've never played 4th edition, but I've incorporated 4th edition rules in my game before, and I've changed some. I've added some homebrew rules. So like, while at the same time a new edition doesn't like scares me for the same reasons that you're talking about, but also it doesn't scare me because at the end of the day we make up the rules anyway. A lot of the time.
Yeah, true.
Right.
Yeah.
So
like at the end of the day, I trust my own storytelling ability that I can make it work. I can improvise around whatever the rules are until I've learned the rules well enough for it to work.
Yeah, no, for sure. And my I mean the homebrew like rules that I use for crits is max the instead of doubling your dice, it's max the first dice and then roll your second dice.
Yeah.
So that way, because I always wanted to have, I always wanted to make crits better than a normal hit. And if you roll 2 1s on your crits, then it's not better. So.
The number of it changes like that. The number of DMs that use that exact rule is astounding. I'm one of them. I know that Dead Aussie Gamer and Dreaded GM also use those rules. Max out what you could have rolled and then roll again, so that you are guaranteed to do better with a crit than you would otherwise. It's things like that I go, I think they would be smart to incorporate those very common house rules into the new editions and be like, these are official rules, like even if they put them in as optional rules. But the smartest thing for them to do, I think, in future editions is to look at or poll people on what are the most common house rules and changes to the rules that you use in your games, and then just offer them as official options, or just the default.
Yeah, no, for sure. I completely agree with you. But like, what I find strange with the conversation online about D&D is the arguing over, and like, I mean, I love arguing over rules, like in a friendly way,
Yeah, of course.
and just trying to like, look at them and manipulate them, put them in certain situations and say, okay, how would this work in this way? I think it would work this way. No, I would work this way. I mean, it's half of what we do at Hops and Dragons. I mean, Tilly. But the idea of, of really kind of arguing that much about an official rule, to be like, well, just change it that way in your own game if that's how you think it should be run. Like
Yeah.
that's the beauty
Yeah,
of
yeah.
D&D, right? So
Yeah, I've never
about
fully understood that, because it's like there's a whole swath of dungeon masters that just don't like to change rules, and so they're like, I can't, like, maybe they don't trust themselves to be consistent with it if they start changing rules, or there's like a purist element to their thinking that it's like, if it's, I only play rules as written. But I don't personally know any dungeon masters that play 100% rules as written. Um, so it's odd to me that those arguments even happen. It's almost like they're just from people who argue about the rules without actually playing the game.
yeah, it's probably right, to be honest. But yeah, I think I don't know. I just I'm pretty much, when you talk about people that are DMs that play rules as written. Again, I've got my homebrew rules, so I'm not 100% rules as written. But if I don't know the rule, I'll say, look it up and tell me.
Yeah,
Let's, if it'll
yeah,
take
yeah,
too
yeah.
long, obviously, it's a
That's
different story. But like,
yeah, that's
let's
my
figure it
rule.
out. Let's learn
That,
together, right?
that's my rule of thumb as well. Is like, if I don't know, I'll look it up, and if I feel like
Yeah,
looking it up is going to take more than a minute, I'll make a rule in the moment and look it up later.
yeah, exactly. I agree.
It's like playing Monopoly strict rules as written only. You should play Monopoly strict rules as written. Well, you shouldn't play Monopoly at all. But if you're going to play Monopoly, you should play it rules as written, because the house rules that people say, like, money on the free parking and stuff, that's just extends the trauma of the game. Don't, like, if people actually play Monopoly as it's meant to be played, it's not nearly as terrible a game as people say. It is still a pretty terrible game.
It's funny because I grew up with money on free parking, so
Yeah, same. Yeah, money on
and
free
and I grew up with
parking. All of your taxes and stuff go to free parking instead.
yeah,
The auction rule people forget about a lot. That if somebody doesn't
yep,
want to, they can choose to auction off a property instead.
yeah. It's literally a space where you don't have to pay rent.
Yeah, that's all it
It's
is.
not
It's a
winning
space
the
it's a
lottery.
space where nothing happens. That's why it's called free
Yeah,
parking and not lottery.
yeah, right. But
Monopoly's the
it's
worst.
funny because I grew up on a Canadian version of Monopoly, so
Uh
it's
huh.
all like streets here in Canada.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And like there's a street here in where I live in Newfoundland as well, and it was really really neat. And then I heard people talking about what's the expensive one? Is it Boardwalk? Is that it?
In
No.
in the original, in like the London one, it's Mayfair
Oh, okay.
or
Is the
Parkway.
original one in the UK, or is it
I
the
think it
American one?
is. I think I'm not sure actually. I wouldn't be
Yeah.
able to say for sure. Mayfair is the one that I know as being the original one, the expensive one. Rowdy
Rowdy
says
says
Park
Park Place.
Place.
Yeah. So I like heard all these new locations on the American one, and I was like, I don't recognize any of these. I grew up with the Canadian version, which is very obviously a spin-off. So
Yeah, there's literally thousands of different editions of Monopoly now. I was
yeah.
looking it up a little while ago just for interest's sake, and there's literally thousands of official Monopolies, because like pretty much every city in the world has its own.
Oh yeah.
And then there's like, all of the different IPs of the world have their own monopolies. Batman Monopoly and Spider-Man Monopoly and all that.
Is there a D&D Monopoly?
I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be at all surprised. Lachlan says yes. Lachlan says this is a D&D Monopoly.
Yeah. That's awesome. So
So so go on, sorry.
I was just saying I saw a couple questions there about everybody from my community knows that I just got a puppy a few weeks ago,
Yeah.
and he usually makes an appearance on stream with me. But my partner's taking care of him now tonight. So he is doing well. He started off at 3.5 pounds when we got him, and was supposed to be around 10
Three and
and
a
12,
half
10 to
pounds.
12. He
That's
was
so
supposed to be between
tiny.
10 and 12 pounds.
Holy cow.
And he had a little bug in his belly, a single-celled parasite that we had to take him to the vet and get rid of. And we assumed that he didn't put on weight because of the fact that he had that stealing all of his nutrients in
Yeah.
his stomach. So But he has since now put on more than quadrupled in size. And he's now 13 pounds. And we've had him for, what's today? The 15th. So on the 17th, it'll be a month. So
Wow.
he's getting bigger. He's putting on weight. So he's healthy now.
How big is he going to get to? What sort of size would that breed
Yeah,
get?
so he's a Bernedoodle, so he's supposed to be between 50 and 90 pounds. The litter was a little bit was big, so all of them were small, so he's got that kind of going against his weight. And his mother was only 55 pounds, so she was the Bernedoodle, or sorry, the Bernese was a little bit smaller. So we're expecting he's going to be closer towards the 50, 60 pound mark and not towards the 90 pound mark. So
Still pretty chunky.
yeah, I can't wait. I really wanted a big dog, so.
You had dogs before?
I was with an ex-girlfriend who 2010, 2010, and when her father passed away, he had a 12-year-old dog, and so we inherited it,
Right.
and he was sick, so he didn't really take care of the dog that well. And so wasn't really trained, and I took a lot of pride in trying to train him and get her, sorry, up to a functioning social dog again,
Yeah.
and disprove the whole you can't
I
teach
was
a new
gonna
dog or an
say,
old dog new tricks. Yeah.
literally
Um,
a saying about that.
and yeah, and I mean, we only fortunately she was older, so she passed away a couple years after, or a year afterwards. So we didn't have that long with her, but I definitely realized that I was a dog person after
Yeah.
that, and I grew up with cats and everything all my life.
Right.
So yeah, so it's never had a puppy before. This is a new experience,
New
let me tell you.
experience. Yeah. Lots of accidents and things so far.
He's been pretty good, I will say. He's been pretty good, but there were the biggest thing for me. I could handle anything, but I can't handle anything on no sleep. So,
Right.
especially when he was sick when we first got him, it
Yeah.
was every single hour. It was
Oh wow.
like had to take him out, and I took because I'm a night owl and because my partner's a morning person, I would take the basically 12 a.m. to 3
Right. Right.
3:30
Right.
a.m.
Yeah.
shift, and then she would take the 4
Four
until
other
8
ones.
shift
Yeah.
kind of thing, right? And anyway, now he's sleeping like the last 3 nights, and I don't want to say this out loud because I'll jinx it, but the last 3 nights he slept between 6 and 7 hours,
That's
right? So
yeah.
taking him
That's
out at
good.
1, and he's gotten up at 7:30. So
Nice. He's getting better. That's the thing, in
yeah,
it. Like those difficult stages are always just a phase that'll pass. You just need to keep looking ahead, and I imagine just be like, this too shall pass. Yeah,
uh,
Lizzie and
if
I are getting one soon. We're very looking forward to it.
I saw, do you know what breed?
Most likely a Staffy cross. It'll be a Staffordshire Bull Terriers cross because that's what there's a lot of in the rescues. Was yours a rescue? Um,
No, my sister, sorry, not my sister, my partner is allergic, so we
oh,
couldn't
of course, yeah, you said.
take a chance on the
Yeah,
genetics
yeah,
of
that makes
of a
sense.
of a
Need
rescue or anything, so we
need
had to go with a
poodle in it.
breeder. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going with rescue and all the ones in the rescues around Auckland. Pretty much every one of them say Staffy Cross. Don't know
Yeah.
why that is. Well,
Nice.
I've got ideas of why that is, but luckily they're pretty cute. And I grew up around Staffies. A good friend, like one of my closest friends growing up, had two Staffordshire Bull Terriers. So I'm used to them.
So is the dog gonna make appearances on stream?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Oh yes. It's
Yeah, because mine does.
only reason we're getting it. It's a money maker. People
Yeah.
actually hate
I want to
dogs.
do I want to do I want to
People
do
just love
a
them.
like it's just a random like Tuesday night or something where it's just like an hour. It's just a puppy cam, and people can like redeem whatever to like give
People
them
are
a belly
turning.
rub or
People
give
are
them
tuning. People would do it. That's
probably more than our regular show, to be honest.
yeah. Rob's chat would riot if Rob didn't showcase the dog. Yeah, yeah.
That's
You
true.
could genuinely advertise it and be like, "Hey guys, next Tuesday, by the way, we're doing a dog stream, and it's gonna be as long as the dog can handle. We're just gonna whatever." Yeah, I
So so you're gonna hate me for this because I hate myself for it. But I didn't want to spam my own socials with like photos of him every single day.
yeah.
So I created an Instagram account for him, and I said I would never do it because I hate it when people do that.
There he is. It's
But
good.
he's growing more followers
Is
on
it called
Instagram than I am.
is it called Dogs and Dragons?
No, it should be. We we very briefly considered
Hops,
calling him Hobson.
Hobson, yeah.
So,
Hops and doggos.
yeah.
Cool
That's
with that.
actually a channel in our Discord, Hops and Doggos, where people
Oh,
can share
really?
their pets. So yeah.
Nice. There we go.
Um, but if anybody wants to check him out, his name is why so serious puppy because his name is Sirius.
Nice.
Yeah. I
Serious.
I can
Is he black? Is he a
he
black puppy?
is mostly he's tricolor, but he's mostly black. Yeah.
I was
Yeah,
just
he's
wondering
very
if
very cute.
I was wondering if Sirius came from the dog or from Harry Potter or from the star constellation.
Yeah, so both actually. So like
Right.
between me and my partner, I wanted something nerdy and she wanted something kind of like literary and
Yeah.
so we went through a lot of different things. We wanted a theme. So like
Hmm.
my brother named their dogs. They've had four dogs now in their life. And all of their dogs are named after Newfoundland towns.
Right.
So one was Trinity, one was Brigus, one was Maberly, and one was Rexton for Port Rexton. It's I was like, that's a really cool idea.
Mm.
So like, let's think about this and think about like if we get future dogs, if we can name them within the same sort
Yeah.
of theme. And we went through like um, scientists, so like Einie for Einstein,
Hmm.
Newt for
Hmm.
Newton, kind of thing, to to Lord of the Rings characters as
Yeah.
well. He was almost named Gimli. I'm not gonna lie, but we settled on Sirius because it's the dog star, obviously,
Yeah.
and also he's in Harry Potter for
So
Sirius
so
Black,
your
and all.
so your theme going forward is going to be Harry Potter characters that are also stars.
But you know what? The entire Black family tree are all named after stars, so it's
Are they?
perfect. Yes.
I don't think I ever knew that. Bellatrix
Yeah, I didn't know that.
is a star.
Yeah. Bellatrix
Regulus.
is in Orion. Regulus is in
Oh wow,
oh
cool! I
my
didn't know
god,
that.
Leo maybe. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So
So you do have a theme going. I was
yeah, Arcturus as well. Pollux and what's the other one? Pollux is in Gemini. Yeah, there's a bunch of them. So I did
nice.
my research. Okay.
Yeah, good. Good on you. You got
Yeah.
yourself a theme in case you get more. And you reckon you would
Yeah.
get
Uh,
a whole herd, a
we'll
whole
see. We'll
pack?
see how this one. We'll see how this one turns out.
Yeah.
Apparently, two are easier than one.
Yeah,
So we'll
I've heard
see.
that about dogs because unlike cats, they are very much a pack animal. They like others.
Yeah. Oh,
Obviously,
definitely.
case by case. If they're a rescue particularly, and they've had bad experiences with dogs or whatever, then it can be an issue to have another. But more often
Yeah.
than not, I've heard that dogs are better with a couple of them in the house than
Most
on their
definitely.
own,
Yeah.
and cats are
Yeah.
the other way around usually.
Yeah.
Before
I love cats. Don't get me wrong, but
Yes, I enjoy cats, and there's a neighbour just across the driveway from me that has a couple of very, very, very personable cats that just walk into my house and come upstairs and start mewing for attention.
oh, nice.
That's one of the questions we've been asking the breeders. The rescues. We've been saying like, hey, how are the dogs with other dogs, and how are they with cats? Because if they're the type that will tear apart a cat, then can't be having them here.
Yeah, really though.
There's a few cats in the area that it'll go for. Just before it disappears, we've got Fulio asked a question. What's your opinion about multiclass with 2 levels of fighter, 3 levels of assassin rogue, 2 levels of grave cleric, 2 levels of paladin, 1 level of divine sorcerer, 10 levels of whisper bard? This class have first hit the average damage of 518. So it's one of those classes that people have min-maxed to try and do the most damage. Is that the idea, Fulio?
That's intense.
That is
Um,
intense.
we've had this. Tilly and I have had this conversation before as well about like. Well, basically, my character in his campaign is a multi-class rogue and ranger. It's just gone three into rogue, but it's mainly ranger. And then I was thinking because I'm a min-maxer, essentially, just I hate that I am, and I'm trying to break it. But in
There's
video games and everything,
nothing wrong with it. It's just a different type of style.
no, definitely. But it's something that me personally, I want to get more into the. I don't care about the numbers, and I want to lean more into the
Hmm.
role play
Yeah.
because I'm definitely more into the numbers. And I just revert to that all the time. But because I talked about, okay, what about if if I wanted to triple multi-class kind of thing, like what would I dip into? And then the conversation comes up about what you're giving up in the higher
Oh yeah.
levels because we're level 16, 17, I think now in his campaign.
Damn.
Yeah, it's been going for 4 years, I guess, before I started mine. But yeah, it's like I think at some point in time, your level 2, your level 1 and level 2 spells
They just
and
don't
abilities
cut it.
aren't going to keep up,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they just don't cut it with, because the more you multiclass, the more you're taking out high level stuff in favor of low level stuff, which just doesn't pay off. Like
Yeah.
sometimes your level 7 thing isn't as good as a level 1 thing from another class, so it makes sense to multiclass at that point.
Mm.
But at some point, you're like, regardless of the class that you're playing, a level 14 feature is going to be better than a level 1 feature from another class. So it's,
Yeah.
I think multiclassing into 2 classes is very common. Multiclassing into 3 can work. Multiclassing above that is, you're doing it for shits and giggles. You're doing it for because you've got like a particular thing that you're trying to multiclass. I think multiclassing of more than 3 is only if you are doing like a one shot at a high level, like you're already starting at 18th level or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you want a very particular combo to be able to trigger.
Yeah, and I was going to bring up one shots as well too. So if you're level 8 or something like that, it would be a lot easier then to know that you're never going to reach level 9 if
Yeah.
it's a one shot
Yeah.
for you then to be able to multiclass. But
Yeah, for sure.
something like that, I'd had to look that up. I'm going to copy and paste that because I'm curious with that.
Yeah, I've seen. I mean, there's always these questions of like, what's the fastest you can possibly get in D&D, and what's the most damage you can do in a single strike and stuff like that. And those things have always interested me. Those questions, just out of just curiosity. You're never actually going to play them, but it's just out of curiosity. Sticking rules as written. What is the most damage you can do with a single strike? And then you look it up, and then it's not done. You're not just like, oh, that's one and done, because they keep releasing new races, new classes, new subclasses, new spells, and so that thing has to change. Oh, actually, with the addition of silvery barbs or whatever, with the addition of the Aarakocra, now you can do this. Now you can fly faster or whatever.
And the best part about it is the fact, or I guess the worst part about it is, it's not like a video game where you can just turn on your computer, your console, and just play if you want to play it.
Yeah.
You got to wait. We play with one of my games we play bi-weekly, and the game with Tilly, it's every 3 weeks when he's home. So in between, there's a lot of time and energy that we can spend on D&D. Right? So
Yeah.
I think that's where it comes from.
So tell me more about your history with D&D. You said you started about 2017. What that was just, you said just to have something that you could be doing to spend time with Tilly because you weren't seeing him that much, right?
Yeah, yeah, and it was the other players were my partner because she's up for doing anything, and his partner as well. And it was just the 4 of us for a while, and we added another player there for a while too.
Tilly's the dungeon master of that one.
Tilly was a DM for that one, yeah.
And that's the one that you were an elf ranger, wood elf ranger.
Yep. Yep.
What did you start at level 1? Did you? Is that the same one?
Started at level 1.
Is that the same one that you're still doing now?
Well, we haven't played in the last year since he's gone out west.
Right.
So since we started doing the random encounter episodes on Hops and Dragons, the reason why we do those is because when he's away, we still wanted to keep streaming, keep doing episodes. So when he went away, we figured that he probably wouldn't have the time to do the prep and everything. So I said, you know what, if you want, I'll step up and I'll do and I'll DM, for you, kind of thing when you come back. So we're on pause right now. It's basically a modified version of Rise of Tiamat and Horde of the Dragon Queen. But we're basically at the point now where we're going to Avernus to fight Tiamat. Right. So we're level, like I said, 16 or 17, and we've got a couple levels to go. We said about halfway through that we wanted to go to level 20. And it is a slog, let me tell you.
Yeah, I imagine. I've started in my home games and stuff. I've started leveling people up 2 levels at a time, because I'm like, we're five years into this campaign and we're level 10. Like I want to get to level 20 because when I started, I didn't realize how long campaigns were. So I made a story that would last all the way to level 20, and I set things up to be like, this is going to be the level 20 bad guy, and like started seeding it right from level 1. So they've got this ongoing campaign that is so deeply woven into everything they've done that they really need to follow it through to the end. So I'm like, if we're gonna get to any sort of satisfying conclusion, it is level 20. So we're going all the way, and it's taken us 5 years to get to level 10. So I'm just gonna chuck them up 2 at a time.
Yeah, so I started DMing at the end of April last year. was the first time that I did. Well, I did a one shot before that, but I don't really count that. But so I started this campaign a year ago, and we've been doing pretty much every 3 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes we've missed it because somebody's been sick
Yeah.
or there's been a birthday or something like that. But pretty much every 3 weeks. I don't know how many sessions that is. But anyway, it's they're level. I think they're level 3 now, and like maybe like 3/4 of the way to level 4. So
Jesus Christ. I
yeah.
was expecting you to say like 6 or something and be like, yeah,
Well,
that's about right. But Jesus.
no.
So 3 weeks into 52 goes like 17. So you've had 17-ish sessions. You said you missed a couple, so like 15-ish sessions, maybe 13 or so.
Yeah.
That's
So maybe like one level every 5 sessions.
yeah, that is a slow progression.
Yeah.
What's taken it so long? Because I know a lot of people will be like level 1 lasts for 1 or 2 sessions and then you're up. Have you been doing XP? You
Rob,
doing milestone?
are you are you shaming me now? Are you shaming my
I'm
players? I don't
shaming you,
know.
dude. I don't know. Either way, well,
It's
it could be. It depends on what it is. Like if they're going out slogging and you're not giving them the levels, then it's shaming
yeah.
you. But if they're sitting around a
It's
campfire in real time for 3 hours for the session, then understandably that they're not
so
leveling up.
I've actually given them more levels than I should because I'm running a modified adventure, pre-made adventure because I lead a very, very busy schedule with multiple jobs and plus the
Hmm.
stream and a couple other things. And so Tilly convinced me after I did my fully customized homebrewed 100% one shot that I spent like 2 weeks preparing for, and had like every single NPC and what they had on them and their quirks and all that kind of stuff. Like
Yeah,
every single person in the town. Yeah, he was like, maybe you should try and run like something pre-made and it'll be a little
yeah,
bit easier for you. So I said, okay, fine. And then immediately started to homebrew things
yeah.
as I started to run it. But they were supposed to be level 3 at the point where they are, they're supposed to be hitting level 3 where they are now in their
Right.
next session, basically. And I gave them level 3 like 3 sessions ago. So
Yeah,
I'm giving them more.
that does make a lot of sense now. As soon as you said you were running a module, I'm like, okay, that makes sense because the module generally tells you when they hit this point, hit them level 3,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so difficult
But
to work to because sometimes they've done way more than that. They've done all the
yeah, I
side
know.
quests and they've mucked
Yeah, and
around with
they
this and that.
yeah, and they did a bunch of random encounters and everything as well. So I felt bad like making them get to the end of the at the end of this big dungeon that
Yeah,
they did, and they were supposed to level up when they got back. But I knowing because it was a travel thing, so they traveled really far one way, and then went to the dungeon, killed the boss in there, and then they were supposed to level up when they got back. But
hmm.
I'm making the travel like engaging and not just
Yeah,
like, oh, okay, you travel and you're there.
yeah,
So like I had to add another level because it was like 3 more sessions or
yeah,
4 more
yeah.
sessions, right? So
Yeah, I've
um
done a similar thing, similar problem I had when they were going on a quest to kill a dragon. First time in like 4 years, 4 or 5 years at that point that we'd actually fought a dragon in Dungeons and Dragons. They went and found a hill. They went and found a fire giant, and the fire giant said he'd only make a sword for them if they killed this red dragon for him, and blah blah blah. And so because like there was all these side quests on the way, they first had to survive in what I call the death plains in order to get to the giant, and then they had to fight the giant and prove their worth before he'd even negotiate with them. And then he was like, okay, you've proven you're good fighters or whatever. Go kill this dragon for me, and I'll make you this legendary sword that you want. And so there was all these other little things, and then they went off to fight the dragon, and of course it's not an easy journey between the giant and the dragon. So there were encounters on the way, and I was like, they've earned a level up before they even get to this dragon. It was meant to be like a milestone thing. When you kill the dragon, you get a level. But I was like, I'll
yeah.
level you up first. So I leveled them before the dragon, which give me the option of making the dragon fight just a little bit harder. Um, and then they killed the dragon, and they were like, "Do we get a level for that?" And I was like, "If you remember, I know we haven't played for a while, but I gave
Yeah.
you a level right before the dragon. I'm not going to level you again after the dragon as well."
Yeah.
But hell, I probably should have, because as I say, I've with that same group, I've started leveling them 2 at a time anyway. So
Yeah, no,
I
fair enough.
could have probably leveled them 1 at a time and just twice as often.
Yeah. The 2 at a time is interesting. I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, I've seen. I first heard it when back in Adventure Zone, the Adventure Zone podcast with the McElroys. He did two at a time in that, and at the time I was like, "That's ridiculous." And then it seemed to really work. They managed to get through their whole story by 69 episodes or something.
Right. So I've just checked my notes,
Yes.
and it's 10 sessions.
Oh, okay. So you haven't
So
gone every 3 weeks. You've gone less than every 5, on average, which is the same as about as my last couple of years. First with that group, I went probably an average of once every 2 weeks at most, because we were doing weekly and missing a few. And then when I got when I went back to university, it just very quickly dropped off, and it was once a month, and then it was once every 2 months, and then it was not uncommon for us to have like 4 or 5 months at a time where we didn't play at all, and then played like 2 sessions, and then another few months. It was just life just completely got in the way.
The main boss of D&D is always scheduling, hey?
Yeah.
So I mentioned that I'm running the same. I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but I'm running the same campaign for another group.
All right.
And I said, hey, if I don't have the free time, why did I agree to DM a second group? Don't ask me. But there's a couple beginner players in there that basically learn D&D through joining us in Hops and Dragons.
Yeah.
And they never played. They don't know anybody that played. So I said, hey, I'll run a game for you.
Right.
I've already got all the prep done for this other group. So I'll just run the same campaign for you guys, and it'll be alternating schedules, so it'll be fine. Mm-hmm. It was not fine. They're doing their own thing. And if you want to talk about going slow, they're on session 9. We play every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And they're not even a third of the way where the other group is. So
that's the folly, isn't it? I made that same mistake when I was starting out. I ran 2 concurrent groups in the same world because I thought, well, it'll be less prep. It'll be half the prep because I've already prepped for one and I prepped for... No, but then they do completely different things. The dice rolls don't go differently. They make different choices. They meet different people. They go to different... And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. It's just double the prep. It's just straight up double because it's 2 completely different games, and it doesn't matter if it's from a module or homebrew.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so you're asking me about the process and everything. So I played my D&D history. I played as a player exclusively in Tilly's campaign for about 4 years, I think it was. And then he had to go away for work, and I said that I would pick up the DM reign, and then DM'd basically from this time last year until now. Obviously, we're supposed to be playing tomorrow, but the COVID is preventing us from doing that, and then I started the other group. I think that was probably over the summer, maybe towards the fall kind of thing. So 5 years ago, I had only just kind of been adjacent to D&D, and now with Hops and Dragons and DMing twice a week and being in one shots on other people's channels, and now D&D is my life. So it has that.
The funny thing is, it's the same with everything, and there's so I do, in case anybody's come from your community and doesn't know who I am, I do a game for Viva la Dirt League, a comedy group in New Zealand, but with a global audience, and we release half-hour episodes every week, and and because we film for like 6.5 hours and then break it into half-hour chunks, it can play out at the table like a regular D&D game where we're just mucking about and making jokes and stuff, and we don't necessarily know how long we're doing that for until it comes time to making them into half-hour episodes and go, oh no, we didn't actually make any story progression at all in 30 minutes, which comes very clear in the comments when people are like, You've fucking done nothing for the last fucking 4 episodes. Can we get something happening? And I kind of want to reply to all those comments being like, you obviously don't play D&D.
Yeah, right.
Because if you think this is not an exact representation of what D&D is for every table ever, like you don't get through content every half hour. You don't push the story forward every freaking half hour of gameplay. It's just how it is. Deal with it. Like the fun is from mucking about at the table with your friends.
Yeah, exactly. It's a social thing for sure. But that's the difference between D&D as entertainment and D&D as
Yeah.
entertainment for others, and D&D as entertainment for yourself, right?
Yeah, I am having to be a little more aware of that because I do want them to have fun at the table and like actually play it as if it's D&D, but I am constantly also aware of like I do need to get through a certain amount of stuff in this table session so that people aren't just turned off and no longer watching 10 episodes later because nothing's happened.
Yeah, I'm brutal for that. Our sessions start. My Wednesday session with the couple beginners starts at 8:30 p.m. Actually, we changed it to Tuesday night now. I just remember that we haven't played on a Tuesday yet. But yeah, so that session starts at 8:30, and I said we'd be done around 10:30. I've yet to be done before like 11:45 or midnight. So, yeah, I don't know if you learn how to do that in half-hour sessions. Can you please give me some tips?
Yeah,
I
that
really need
because
it.
when I first started out in the first like if you watch the maybe first 10 to 20 episodes or so of the series, um, something happens every half hour or so because I was consciously aware of that and I was like making sure to put something in every 20 minutes, 30 minutes or something. And then it was just so much work, so much extra prep time for me to like try and keep things moving forwards and to like really railroad them through through some encounters and stuff, just so we can get to the next thing, so that something can be happening in the next episode. And I just started to relax on that a lot, and found that the biggest fans just didn't care anyway because they were there for the guys and how they
Yeah.
interact. They were there for the story that unfolded, but they didn't care how long it took to get there because of the jokes and stuff, making it funny. Like, because we're not just sitting there in silence for half an hour, just looking at each other. If we've not gotten through any story, it's because there's been so many jokes and so many
Yeah.
like mucking about, and so that means that you're gonna have something to watch.
Yeah, at the very least. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
No, that's good. It's always entertaining the show that you guys do for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, yeah. It's a fun one. It's a weird sort of a process for me is that I've got a lot of time to prepare for one session and then 3 months or so before the next table session, and
Right.
because we're releasing them half hourly, so like we get like 12 episodes, let's say, and that's 12 weeks, and then we've got to film the next lot. So it's a weird like stop and start, huge day of filming the entire next chunk, and then like huge waiting time before it comes up again. So I have to, at the start of every session, I have to remind the guys, here's what we were doing, here's where you were, this is what was going on, what do you remember?
Yeah, really though. And I feel that too because it's 3 weeks between
Yeah,
sessions. And if we miss a session, it's 6 weeks
it's six
between
weeks
sessions for
yeah.
us, right?
Yeah,
So
it can be a pain in the butt. How are you with your note taking as a dungeon master? How do you
oh,
what do you do for your prep and note taking and stuff?
I have a fantastic player at both tables
Uh-huh.
in both campaigns that take amazingly detailed notes, so I don't have to.
Nice. Yep.
But as
That's the
far
best.
as far as preparation goes, because I was running, it was just an adventure. It was a 1 to 3 adventure, and then I built onto it afterwards. And they're at the point now where they're at the end of that adventure, so they're moving into basically my story now that was
Right.
just seeded with this adventure.
Uh-huh.
And excuse me, I need another Halls here now. Um, the yeah, so it was kind of easy for me to just, if I didn't have time to do the prep, I would just be able to sit down and just go by the book. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't want to do that because of the fact that, I fully believe that if you incorporate your characters a lot more, your players a lot more, then you
Oh
get so
yeah.
much more out of D&D.
So much more.
So those to me are failures. I don't want to say failures, but because a lot of the times it's because of a busy schedule that I wasn't able to do that. But for me, it was uh, the prep was minimal for a lot of it because of the schedule. Now, the couple times that I was able to sit down and go, okay, I have this person's backstory, I've got this NPC who knows this, I've got all these things, and I sit down and I make a checklist of like this is what everybody knows, this is all this kind of
Right.
stuff. And I just do it in Word. I don't have any, fancy
Mm-hmm.
organization system or anything like that. I know I should. I know Tilly has a way better system than I do. He uses OneNote, I think, and it's all organized. But
Yeah.
um, I'm slowly getting myself into a point where I'm like, oh, I really need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
But the times that I've sat down and done the prep, oh my God, it's just been like night and day different. I feel
Yeah.
so proud of those sessions because it's like, okay, they didn't do this. That's fine.
Yeah.
They don't need to. But if they did, I had something ready for it.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, what do you want to do now?
Yeah.
It was a this thing happens and it's really exciting and go do what you want kind of thing, right?
Yeah, I
So
100% agree with that. Like, I'm the only times I'm ever sort of disappointed in myself in D&D is when I have had a session where I was mostly improvising it because of my lack of prep, or I hadn't anticipated something that they might have done. I always try and pride myself on having contingencies for, like, if they do this thing, I've got rules around how that might work, and I might not have like prepped the exact circumstances, but I've prepped for, like, I know the world, and I know the world that they're in, and I know the rules of the game well enough to improvise something within that. But any time that they do something that I hadn't anticipated for, I haven't thought about making rules for how that might work, and I don't know that area of the game, that area of the world enough or whatever, then I'm on, winging it and improvising, and having a lot more of that sense of what do you do now, and putting it on them.
yeah, yeah,
And they're left going, I mean, what is there to do now? What can we do now?
yeah,
And I think some of that came from, or ties in anyway, with this this sort of reputation for a good D&D session being Sandbox and a bad one being Railroad. And I've
yeah.
never fully agreed with that, because I think one of the biggest mistakes I made early on in my Dungeons and Dragons GMing career is that I was so frightened of being a railroady, aka bad DM, that I made everything 100% Sandbox and was like, do something, here's the world. And they're
Do
like,
something.
yep,
Yeah,
here's the world, but where's the plot? And I'm like, you make the plot. And they're like, but where
yeah,
are the characters in the world? So what's happening around us that could make something happen? I'm like, there's always something happening, and I'd like seeded things here and there, but if they didn't want to do that or they didn't pick up on it, then there's nothing driving them to do something. So since then,
yeah.
I became more of like there's a sandbox, but it's on a train. And
Yes.
so you are on rails, but you can muck around. You can muck around on the sandbox while you're on the train, but we're going somewhere, and I'm pushing us in a direction that it has to go.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I was really, really worried about the two because of all the things that I had heard about Railroad being bad. And we've talked about this a bunch of times with different guests and everything on Hops and Dragons, myself and Tilly and random encounter guests. I think we even talked to you about it when you were on as well. But the I was in the same way where I was really, really apprehensive and I didn't want to force them. And especially running a pre-made adventure, I felt like it was on rails, so I didn't want to kind of go down that path.
Yeah.
But I've discovered now, and this is anecdotal, but for me in this campaign, I've discovered that what they do in session X is going to influence what they do in what I do in session Y.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So at one point in time, a random encounter that I had rolled. So people are confused. On Hops and Dragons, we have a show called Random Encounters where we have guests on, similar to this, a short rest.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about a random encounter in the game. So
Capital R, capital E, random encounter.
exactly. So there was a random encounter, and if anybody that is in my campaign that's watching, maybe hit mute now for the next like 2 minutes. But it was just a random encounter that they ran into this mage who had essentially had amnesia, and that was it. It was just a role playing encounter.
Yeah.
And they decided to take him with them. And I was like, okay, well, this would make sense. And, as he gets closer to where he's from, he'll start to get his memory back and all that kind of stuff. And anyway, so as the days go by, this is like 3, 4, 5 days later, he's still with them. And this was only just supposed to be a quick random encounter. I figured they would just leave him and say, no, we got to go back. We're on a time limit kind of thing. So when I had this, I realized
so
now.
Of course, this improvised voice that you came up with him for in the moment is now stuck in it. Yeah, I've had that before. Like,
Yeah,
I wish I'd picked an easier voice to do that.
Right. Yeah. So when he finally got to the point where he was like, okay, that's where I'm from. I need to go over this way. Then the party had to make a decision: continue on your quest, which is on a time limit and very, very urgent. You've already dilly-dallied a lot. Or go.
I'll take him.
Or go and help this guy that you've talked about helping for a while, right? Anyway, one of the characters, actually was my partner, funny enough. Her character is like just speaks his mind. She's playing a turtle wizard.
Right.
and just has no tact at all, and
Right.
just
Right.
like, so she tried to steal his spell book. He's a mage or a wizard, and I was like, okay, what are the rules for this? And I looked it up and whatever, and she rolled really high. She critted
Yeah.
on everything, and he failed everything. And I was like, oh my god, this is like a half powerful wizard. She stole the spell book.
And now she's got all these spells, and like, why would he not?
Yeah,
And you're trying to think like, why would he have a decoy spell book, or why would he not
yeah,
have high
right.
level spells in his spell book? Because I can't just
Yeah.
give her all these high level spells. But yeah, there it is.
Yeah. So basically the plan was that, he was going to have some sort of like friendly story kind of thing, and
Yeah.
he's like, thank you so much for helping me. Here's a reward for your quests
Yeah.
kind of thing. And because of this, he's basically said, like, he had a symbol on his back and everything. They didn't know what it was. And then at the end, he was like, I'll remember this if you ever see this faction again, that they never heard of before. Who said, you better watch your back kind of thing, right? So now they've
Oh,
made an
that's
enemy
cool.
instead of a friend, right? So I had this huge thing planned for them, and then
Yeah.
this happened. It was like, okay. Right? So,
Guess
so
we
yeah,
did that.
so as far as prep goes, I like to kind of like do those things, and then um have the players kind of seed what the next session's prep is going to be,
Yeah.
which is always kind of fun.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like my preparation for the next game, for any game, is to look back over my notes of the previous game. Like, it's the most important thing for me, is to go,
Yeah.
what happened, what did they do,
Yep.
and I love to include seemingly innocuous interactions with the world or with people, and go, that person's going to remember this, or you treated
Yeah.
this person in this way, so they'll be there as a Deus Ex Machina because you
Yeah.
saved their life or helped them or whatever, and they feel indebted to you. So I give
Yep.
them options that they don't know about yet, based on the things that they've taken, which I've
Yeah.
always liked in video games that do that. That there are video games that lean into it and video games that don't, and it's really disappointing when it doesn't seem to matter what the dialogue option is that you pick, and then there are other games that are like, you can only unlock that dialogue option at all if you've done this other thing. There's actually a game I really liked recently. What's it called? Detroit Become Human. Have you seen that one? You played Detroit?
I haven't played it yet. No.
Real good one. I really enjoyed it. You're basically you're exploring artificial intelligence in robots, and robots becoming sentient and wanting to rebel against being slaves, essentially. And it's very much, the entire thing is a skill tree. The entire story. It's got like 24 different endings or something that can possibly happen for each of the different, like, three main characters, and every scene in the game is itself a skill tree, not a skill tree, but you know what I mean, like a decision tree. That if you've done this, then you do this, and if you've saved this character way back in the first scene, then you get this option in this scene and stuff. Fantastic, and has a lot of replayability because of that.
See, that's too much choice for me.
Yeah.
Like, I'm okay with being put on rails for a story.
Yeah,
So,
fantastic story, regardless of which choices you make for it. But it does make you go, what would have happened if I did this then? I didn't know that was even an option when I was doing it. I was just following what I thought the game wanted me to do, and then at the end
yeah.
of the end of every scene in that game, it gives you the decision tree, and it shows you what you've done, but it doesn't show you. It
Oh,
shows you the grayed out versions of what you could have done. But you're like, I
right.
don't.
Very cool.
So there was a choice here.
Yeah.
What else could I have done? And so you
Yeah.
always want to go back and play that same scene through.
Yeah.
But the story's so compelling that you want to continue the story, and you'll be like, I'll come back to that later.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Have you played Baldur's Gate 3 at all? It's in
Not
early
yet.
access
No,
right now for
not
last
yet.
year.
I'm kind of against, on principle, early access games, because there's such a trend towards it, and seems every decent game is coming out as like early access, which is another way of saying we're not going to iron out the bugs for this,
Yeah.
and there's no impetus for us to actually finish the damn thing. So I've been holding off on Baldur's Gate 3. I do want to play it, but I'm going to wait for it to come out properly.
Yeah, I get that for sure. But it's very similar to that, where there's a lot of choices. Like, I
Yeah,
think when that first came out, Tilly and I played it on Sunday nights. Excuse me, we played it on Sunday nights, and we played through it like 4 or 5 times, and got different experiences every time we played through it. And it's
nice.
only it's only the first act. It's only up to level 4 so
Yeah.
far. Like obviously it's early access. And so we probably put maybe 80, 90 hours into it and
Damn.
still continue to
Yeah,
get
getting
different
new stuff.
experiences.
I do like
So,
replayability. It gives you a
yeah.
feeling of good bang for your buck kind of thing when you've got like I can get a lot of entertainment out of this thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were worried about it because it's a AAA price game
Yeah.
and it's only in early access and it's only all
Hmm.
these things, right? And I think that we got our money out of it. I mean, we got $1 an hour out of it, kind of thing, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
we're
Yeah,
pretty
that's
happy with
good.
that.
I've got plans with a couple of friends to play through it, maybe on stream or something when it eventually is out properly.
Yeah, I can't recommend it enough. I've had fun with it so far. So
Nice. So, how often do you play video games? So this actually ties back into you. I think we got broken off in the middle of you explaining what it is, all the different things that you do with Hops and Dragons, because you got your random encounters where you chat with guests. You've got your video game streams, which is every when?
yeah, so the random encounters and the regular Hops and Dragons episodes are on Thursday nights.
Thursday nights.
Those are
And those are
yeah, those are six.
alternating nights
y-
or like alternating
Yeah, so
Thursdays.
it's whenever Tilly is home, which is every 3 weeks. We do a regular episode. We're hoping that's going to change within the next 6 months, depending on his work
Yeah.
situation and if the project he's on finishes up. But when he's away, there's 2 weeks in between, and those are the 2 weeks that I've been doing the random encounters.
Right.
Tilly's in chat saying cries. Yeah. It's hard, man. He flies literally on the other side of Canada. So like we're on the East Coast, as far east as you can go,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
he goes as
Definitely.
far west as you can go, right?
So you're in
So
Vancouver. Oh,
north of Vancouver, essentially,
north of
yeah.
Vancouver.
So like way up in the
That is a lot
not
of
way up in the
traveling.
mountains, but
That is so much traveling.
yeah. Yeah, it's a full day for him when he travels to and back. So,
Jeez.
but yeah, so when
Lizzie and
he's
I, just, to interrupt, Lizzie and I were looking at buying a house. We've just bought this one, thankfully, in Auckland. But for a long while, we were very strongly considering having to move out of Auckland because Auckland's one of the most expensive real estates in the world. Um, and we were looking at elsewhere, and we were like, it's for the same price that we can get this 2 bedroom, 1 bathroom in Auckland, we could have got like a mansion in Christchurch. And so like yeah, but all my work's in Auckland, like with the Viva La Italy guys. I'm filming with them relatively frequently and stuff. And Lizzie was like, well, I think we need to look realistically at how often you would need to just commute from Christchurch to Auckland just for the day of filming. And I
yeah.
was like, if it gets down to having to do it every 2 weeks, that'd be a bit of a pain in the ass.
Mhm.
But if it was every month, I suppose we could do it. But that's only like an hour's flight, so I
Yeah.
can't imagine doing what Tilly's doing.
He leaves. He gets up at like 4 o'clock in the morning or something. He'll probably correct me on the time, but he gets up at like 4 o'clock in the morning and doesn't get in here until 1 a.m. Local
Oh wow!
times both ways. So, but yeah, it's a stretch. I had a friend actually when I was living in Australia on the East Coast. I had a friend who worked here. His wife was going to med school. Sorry, he worked in Australia, but lived here, and his wife was going to med school in Australia. And he flew down there every 2 weeks and back, and that's a 36-hour travel day from Newfoundland to Australia. So
Yeah, that's so
I don't know
much.
how he did that. So
That's also an exorbitant amount of money. Like that's not cheap flights.
no, it was all paid for by his job, right?
Oh
So I don't
really?
know why they did it,
Jeez,
but I
that
guess
is
he was good at what he did.
insane. Yeah, he must have been good enough to warrant it.
Yeah. So yeah, the
So many
finish
air
answer.
flyers. He must have been like gold flyer or whatever. Going, yeah, all those air
But to
points.
finish answering your question, so that's on Thursday nights. I'm considering changing now because I'm almost because of everything else going on in life and this, I'm almost teetering on the edge of burnout.
Right.
So I might do just one random encounters episode when he's gone away,
Mm-hmm.
and then either something chill with no prep like this.
Yeah.
Because even the random encounters episodes, I do the research, I do the prep, I still
Yeah.
do the news, I still do all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
All the different segments. But I'm thinking about doing something a little bit more laid back with less prep. But yeah, as of right now, it's that's on a 3 week schedule, and then every Sunday night we just hang out and play video games. We started playing D&D games, and then D&D games stopped coming out. So
Like you mean like Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, those sorts of games?
we played Baldur's Gate 3. That was like that came out in early access when we first started streaming, I think it was, which is wild because that was a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
But
Early access, and it's still early
I
access a
know,
year
right?
and a half later.
Yeah. And then what did we do after that? We were so hyped for Dark Alliance,
Yeah,
and
a lot of people were.
we I paid $80 Canadian and put 6 hours into that game.
Oh god.
So yeah. Anyway, we
I,
don't
I
need
I
to talk
never I
about
never bought it, but I went round a friend's house when she bought it. I was there when she bought it, and we played through it for a couple hours that night, and
it.
we were both like, I suppose maybe this will get good, and I was like, I'm not really sold, and then I heard from her like a week later. She's like, I've tried and tried and tried. It's just not good.
Yeah. I mean, like it was fun, mindless, like button smashing. That's fine, but it didn't feel like a D&D game
No.
to me. Nothing about it really felt like D&D other than like some of the characters in it and everything.
Yeah.
Now, there's a cool little tidbit about that game though. So Newfoundland is see if I can explain this in a way um, that your viewers might understand from an Australian perspective, I guess, because that's where I've never been to New Zealand. I've been to Australia.
I mean,
So
a lot of my viewers are from America or Europe, all over the
fair
place.
enough. So, so what Newfoundland is to Canada is kind of what Tasmania is to Australia.
Right. Yeah.
It's an island off the coast that's a little bit quirky, has their own culture, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, and like we're small. Our province is only 500,000 people here, and we're about the size of like landmass of the size of Britain. So we're fairly, pretty spread out.
Spread out. Yeah.
And half of that population, about 250, is in the capital, in the city where I live.
Wow.
So it really spread out. But yeah, the reason why I'm setting this up and explaining this is because there were ogres or something in that game in Dark Alliance that were actually voiced. The voice actor was from, or the writer was
Right.
from Newfoundland, so they actually had like Newfoundland slang and everything in it, which is really cool. So I was really excited about the game because it was D&D. Really excited because we had some Newfoundland
Yeah.
representation in it. But yeah, it's still disappointing. But yeah, we do that on Sunday nights.
Fair enough. So, what other D&D games did you play? Just Baldur's Gate and Dark Alliance? Did you try
Um,
the original Baldur's Gates?
that was the two of them, and then what changed after that? I can't remember what changed. I think some other game came out that was really big that we wanted to try or something.
Right.
But yeah, we stopped playing the D&D games, and now we've just been playing. I've been playing Phasmophobia with just fellow streamers and everything because I cannot get enough of that game. So.
Fair enough. Yeah, it wasn't for
Yeah.
me. Phasmophobia. I give it a go, but I'm not really into horror stuff, and so the whole it's called exorcist kind of take on it.
Yeah, it's I love horror. I want to run like a horror style game at some point in time. Like I want to play Morkborg really bad. I want to do just horror for me. I love it. And this game
Valheim took over our life, till he's saying.
That's what happened. Yes, we stopped playing that.
Valheim took over everybody's life. It was huge.
My God.
God,
I
haven't played that in ages. I want to play it now.
I put 80 hours into that game in 2 weeks.
God,
I have
full-time job.
I have a full-time job. I bartend on the weekends.
Oh my God.
I have an Airbnb that I own and manage.
Oh wow.
Plus I have the stream that I had to prepare episodes for as well. So
I think we're starting
where did I get
starting to touch on why you might be teetering on the edge of burnout.
yeah, I wonder.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's a bit much.
Insane. But understandable because Valheim is crazy addictive. Yeah, I haven't played it in ages. I kind of want to play Valheim again now.
We had a Hops and Dragons community server where we had a bunch of people just log in and just build their own bases and everything. Nice. It was a lot of fun when it was hopping kind of thing. So
yeah, I got pretty good at it. I didn't get past like the mountain zone, but I got good enough that I popped into somebody in my community, Bagel. She had her own server, and I popped into her Discord and secretly found the link to it, and then popped into her server and just named myself Ghost, and then I just walked around doing a whole bunch of stuff, like just tasks for people and putting random things in like people's chests,
Right.
in their houses and stuff. And I kept one eye on the server at the time. And somebody had mentioned that she died to the second boss, the tree one that blasts you with stuff, and I'd killed that one twice. So I was like, all right, and I quickly logged on, and I was due to start streaming half an hour later. It was an early morning thing. So I quickly got up and I went down and I logged on, and very quickly as Ghost I ran off to that zone, and I killed the boss, recovered all of her stuff, put it in her chest, and said from Ghost.
Nice.
And then as soon as I did that, I was also like, as I'm like putting stuff in her chest, going from Ghost. I'm with the other hand, I'm logging on and starting the stream onto a starting soon, and then I went logged out and then started my stream, and so it was helping to quell any rumors of who it was or anything.
That's awesome.
I think this might be the first time that anybody's actually hearing that was actually me.
Oh, the secret's out.
But yeah, that's the level that I was at with Valheim for a while. I was enjoying it a tremendous amount.
Yeah, it's a ton of fun. I like it was zen for me. It really was. For me to be able to log in and just like sit there and just build something and just listen to the music and the birds and everything, like that was my reset. Like I absolutely loved playing that game. I really did.
What am I intimate at the moment? A friend's just lent me a PlayStation 4 because I mentioned that I really wanted to play through the Spider-Man game, because I'd played it a couple times at another friend's house, but I only ever got to play it when I went round to his. To like one weekend I was cat sitting and I played it for a bit. And I was like, man, I really love that game. Just swinging around New York is amazing, and just fighting bad guys and stuff. And then I mentioned this in presence of this other guy, so he just the other day gave me a PS4 and Spider-Man, and I was like, alrighty.
This is what I'm doing now.
I'm going to play that as my break. That's my chill out every day when I need half an hour or an hour of doing something else and unwinding.
Yeah, that is literally my, like, if I don't do that once every couple days, even if it's just for an hour or so, I can feel myself tense if I don't sit down and just let myself get lost in it, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing. You really do, like, physiologically, you need that time to just chill, because it gets so easy to burn out.
It affects my mental health so much to just be able to sit down and unplug by plugging in.
Plug in to unplug. Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So those are the streams you do. You do your regular stream, Hops and Dragons. What's sort of the regular stream? What does that entail? That's the actual gameplay stuff.
Yeah. So we don't do any gameplay for episodes.
Yeah. So what do you do? Your regular episode?
The only sort of gameplay, like actual D&D gameplay, is for the CR CR monster battles, where we pit two of the monsters against each other. But yeah, so we start off with the trinket. We roll for a trinket on the table, which we need a new trinket table for, because we've used up like 70 of them now. So
that's the problem, isn't it? Where's my player's handbook that's got the trinkets, isn't it? Look at my new shells, everybody. I finally put a couple of them up.
Well, I thought it was just magic or removable rod or something.
Yeah, I just use Mage Hand to hold them there the entire time. Trinkets. There's like 50 items, is it? Is it actually 100, or is it a table of 100, but each one gets 2?
No, it's a D100 table that we use. I don't know if we use one that's online. I don't know if it's the official one or not. Tilly can probably tell us in chat if it's the official one or not.
Yeah, somewhere.
But it is a D100 and not a D50.
Okay, yeah, it is a D100. I was trying to remember whether or not it was the sorcerer one. So this is the one that comes in the player's handbook. Is this the table you use with the a mummified goblin hand and a piece of crystal that faintly glows in the moonlight?
I will tell you, I got it up right in front of me here now. Number 1 is a mummified goblin hand, and number 2 is a piece of crystal that faintly glows in the moonlight. Yeah, so it is. So
it seems like the official one, but you've used it for so long now that you've gone through all of them.
Well, we've got 42 episodes of the regular Hops and Dragons episodes, and we've got 26 random encounter episodes. So that's 68 So yeah, we've gone through almost 70.
Yeah, you're starting to get through to the points of repetition.
Yeah,
I
well,
was I did
if we get one that we've had before, we'll roll again. But it's like you'll roll like 3-4 times.
Yeah,
So.
I did the maths on that recently because there's a YouTube channel called One Shot Questers, and I had him on for a short rest recently as well. And he was talking about doing this like challenge channel now. He's got himself 3 different channels with different content on each, and one of them is like he does D&D challenges. He made the world's tallest dice tower recently, and then he spent a stream rolling 1,000 nat 20s, and it took him like 3.5 hours or something. And he made a post saying, should I do a stream where I roll 100 100s on a percentile, or should I do a stream where I roll every number once on the percentile? And I said, well, as a mathematician, I can tell you that the first one will take 10,000 rolls, and the second one will take like 560. So maybe take that into account.
Yeah, that'd be a long stream.
and it was me going through the maths of what does it take to, like, obviously when you roll a percentile the first time, you're guaranteed to get something you haven't had before. The second time you've got 99% you're going to get something you haven't had before. But eventually it gets down to more likely than not that you're going to get something you've already had. And how many rolls does it take to actually get through every number once?
How much do you incorporate that into your games, like the actual like statistics and or probability, sorry, of
pretty high amount. Yeah, I'm a nerd for maths and probability of dice and things, and so I always try and, like, if I'm homebrewing something, if I'm making something up, like I've got a whole bunch of homebrewed stuff on my Patreon that's like brewing rules. I was really interested in how potions are made in the game and how there's a distinct lack of rules for that. And so I made my own rules about brewing, and I broke it down into a really granular kind of system that you can follow to the T if you're interested. That you're like, okay, I first have to forage for the ingredients, and here's the percentage chance of getting each ingredient, and which ingredients do I want, and how many of each ingredient do I get and stuff. So I came up with some real crunchy rules that, and I think I intended to, whether I did or not, I intended to come up with like a simplified version as well, kind of like I was talking about earlier, of like the rules and the advanced rules, so that people can use either. But I put a lot of thought into the statistics and the probability of, like, okay, what does it mean? I can't just choose something at random. When I'm creating a table of if you go foraging and you get so many on your survival check, you get this many ingredients. I don't just come up with that at random. I always put the work into working out the maths behind it and being, what would that mean? Yeah. What's the average roll that you would get, and therefore what's the average amount of ingredients you'd get, and stuff like that.
Yeah, the only time that I get into excuse me, the only time that I get into the math and probability of things is when we look at so we let, for our CR battles, we let people vote on what monsters they want to see.
Yeah.
So we let people vote on 4, and then the top 2 will go head to head, and whoever loses the last week between myself and Tilly picks the monster.
Right.
So if I've lost and it's my turn to choose, then I basically look at them and I kind of come up with the average damage per round and stuff like that. Just kind of think about it that way. But yeah, I find that part fun because I'm obviously not as huge of a math nerd as you are, but I certainly enjoy it. So I find that part a little bit fun. The min max part of me is satisfied in it. Right? So.
Yeah, I actually just last night, like, I don't know, I know a lot of people have talked about like how they get to sleep, like what you think about as you're going to sleep and stuff, and if you got like a routine of what you think about. And I don't think many people would do what I did last night, which is I just had a stream with Dead Aussie Gamer last night where it was kind of a one shot, where we were level 18s and fighting a Tarrasque, and I drank a potion of giant size which triples your damage output and doubles your hit points, and I was already a barbarian or something, so I ended up with nearly 300 hit points, and I was doing 6d6 plus 8 on my attacks. Plus 11, sorry, because I was raging. So while I was kind of like dozing off last night, I was going through the numbers of like what my average output of damage would have been as that character. I was like, because it's a one shot, and you're streaming, so you're not actually playing it out in full for like 4 hours, 5
Yeah.
hours that fight would actually take.
Right.
But I was like, if I had gone head to head with a Tarask on my own, and I was a raging barbarian with the damage and everything that I was doing, a potion of giant size, how much was my average output? And I was going, okay, so 33, so 55% of the time I'm hitting, because I had a plus 14 modifier, so I hit on an 11 or more, but I also had a bless, so I had a 20d3. And I was doing all of these numbers, working it out in my head. So I'm hitting 55% of the time with a regular attack, and then 5% of the time with a crit. And the way that he does crits is he maxes out, and then... So I'm working all this out on 6d6 plus 8, and the averages, and working out what the average damage of that would be. And then I went through the Tarask stat block in my mind, and went, okay, so I know that they hit with this, and they do that much damage on a claw, and they can do a bite and a claw and a horn and a tail in a round, so they're doing this much damage, but I'm halving it because I'm raging. so I don't think a lot of people would go to that level of
see that would wake me up, and that would 100% keep me awake. It's the reason why I don't do the Wordle and Nerdle in the evenings anymore, because it gets my brain going and going and going.
Active.
So, yeah.
You've done mental maths to get to sleep before, Law, but not D&D related ones. Having been bad at maths would have hindered me DMing. Not at all. Now, people being bad at maths, you can be a good DM because it's much more on the story than the mathematics. You can get somebody else at the table to help you with the maths. Not everybody's going to be super bad at it. If I do play with a few players that genuinely have to count on their hands for adding single digit numbers. Maths is just very much not their strong suit. And it's fine because not everybody at the table and the DM are going to be that way, and if they are, then you all know it, and you all lean into it, and it's like you're going to be making mistakes in one direction the same as you are making mistakes in the other direction, like going under the damage as over the damage, and so it's going to come out in the wash.
And really, at the end of the day, I mean, the math that is done in D&D, unless you're theory crafting and like homebrewing and all that kind of stuff, the math is done in D&D is usually plus or minus under 10, the majority of it.
Yeah, so majority of the time it's you're plussing a single digit number or minusing single digits. The only times that it gets really difficult is when you take like 27 damage and you've got 56 hit points, and you're like, shit, what's 56 minus 27?
Yeah. And when you're in front of people, your brain just stops working. So
if you do struggle with subtracting numbers, here's a tip for you that works for quite a few people. A lot of people find addition a lot easier than subtraction. So you just need to flip the idea on its head. So instead of thinking what's 56 minus 27, you say 27 plus some other number is 56. What do I need to add to 27 to get to 56? Some people think about it, have an easier time of it if they think about it as an addition problem rather than a subtraction. So that might help you.
Math tips with Rob.
There's I have a history as a math educator, so that's one of the things I've done.
I'd watch that.
So questions from the audience. Let me open it up to you guys. Ask us questions if you're from Paul and Tilly's audience. Ask any questions of me. If you're from my audience, you can ask any questions of Paul. Let me open this window because it's getting warm again now.
Yeah, and just to just to finish off on because you asked me a question earlier, I don't think I properly answered it, about any segments that we did that we don't do anymore, just in case while people think about any questions. So we did we had a puzzle challenge at the beginning where we said one of the big things that is really hard for us as DMs is to come up with good puzzles. Right, like puzzles are, by nature, one of the harder things to kind of homebrew, 100%. And to find them online as well. Everyone's kind of seen the ones at the top of the search results kind of thing. So that's something that I think that we could probably give some sort of value to people that are watching. And we got through maybe like 10 episodes until we ran out of ideas for puzzles. So we stopped doing that.
The section is because, puzzles are really difficult to come up with. So we're going to do a whole section where we have to come up with puzzles every week.
Yeah, it was a little short-sighted. So we don't do that anymore.
It's tough, man. I went through Tasha's Cauldron of Everything on a Robert Reed's stream recently. And there's a section on puzzles in that. And I was just ragging on them for the most part because I was like, they're all the same idea. That it's like pretty much all of the puzzles in there are related to words and the letters of certain things in the words. And I was like, that has such a strong bearing on common being English for me that does I don't like that translation. It's kind of like when you hear people talking about Star Wars and them speaking English, and it's like, well, they're not speaking English, they're speaking in whatever alien language they're speaking in, and it's being translated into English for you to understand it. And I think about D&D in the same way. Common is not English, and so I don't like to refer to fire giant as starting with an F, because it might not start with an F in whatever common actually is. And so many of the puzzles in Tasha's was letter based, about what letters certain things start with.
Yeah, and, I did the couple puzzles that I came up with were color based. So like colors of the rainbow kind of thing. So you had to put them in the order of the rainbow colors. But just like reading, like on I have our notes list opened up right now for episodes, and like there's a big red bar across where the puzzle challenge is. So we just don't do it anymore. But yeah, but for other segments, we wanted to do an art feature. Wanted to feature some great artists around the community and give them a shout out, drop their links and everything in chat. And then we added afterwards. We were like, wait, now we're all dice goblins. So we added a dice feature. So every week we showcase some fun art in the community and some beautiful dice, and make sure we link out to them as well. So
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
good way to get the community engaged and involved in the whole thing. So you say
most
you've
definitely.
Got a Discord as well. How long into your channel did you deem it necessary to also take the community offline?
Because
offline, but,
I know what you mean. Because of the fact that I work in digital marketing, all of this was set up ahead of time. So we had absolutely everything ready to go before we started. So we were straight up, I don't know, 6 to 9 months planning before we actually, went live for the first time. So we had all the branding, we had all the names, we had everything set up, kind of thing ahead of time.
Yeah, you can tell you worked in digital marketing when I asked you for logos for this, like from beneath me, and you sent me through like 7 different types of, like, in case you want it horizontal or the words stacked, or you want it on a dark background or whatever, and then you sent me through the marketing sheet of
the brand. It was the brand guide, yeah. So if you needed the fonts or the colors or anything,
I was like, I appreciate that, and if this was not a low prep, if this was not specifically a low prep stream for me, because I don't have the time to prep on top of everything else, then I would have definitely gone through it and been like, how do I best use these logos?
That's the benefit of dating a designer. Her official title is art director, but she did all of our branding for us. I mean, I think she did an awesome job, and I'm so grateful to her. But we pay her in sushi.
Awesome.
Yeah, she's done all of our transitions and animations on our channel and everything as well. So
yeah, transitions and animations is something I should get into. I've got a good animator friend who made the so I do a stream every weekend called Twitch Tales, which is an interactive D&D game where the only player is the characters in chat. The chat hive mind control the actions of the one character.
Which is an awesome idea. I love it.
Yeah, I really enjoy it, and people seem to enjoy it. We're leveling up very soon, so if people want to jump in and help the decisions of what Apis should do at level 6, definitely join in this weekend. But for that, I've got one transition animation of like theatre curtains closing and opening again. So it seems like more of a show. But that's the only the only animated transition I have as yet. I do want one for short rests and things like that, but.
Yeah,
Animation's expensive to buy, and I don't want to expect friends to work for nothing.
No, agreed. Or partners.
Partners should work for nothing, right?
Right. I think we were, regularly when we first started and we had less than like 100 followers, people would come in and be like, this everything looks so well produced.
The production value is way too high for the view count. What's this about? Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And it was just because of the fact that I work in marketing and she works in, we both work in marketing, but she's an artist and animator and everything. And we were kind of, we decided that if we wanted to do it, we wanted do it and kind of set off on the right foot, right?
100%.
So
Makes
and it made an
sense.
impact.
Yeah.
We had so many people make comments on it. We had so many people stick around and go, "Oh, these guys are serious."
Huge,
So
yeah. Huge, it would make such a huge difference between other people of that same viewer number and follower count and stuff. To see, like, it would make you stand out and be like, oh, these people have actually put the time in, and I just happened to be early. It really helps that out, because you see somebody with a few viewers or whatever, and you go, is that because they're new to it, or is that because they're not good? They're not entertaining to watch, and it makes that distinction clear. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. Have I missed any of the mods? If you could remind me of any questions that I might have missed.
There's a couple there.
GF Powers asked, have you considered a pirate rob stream point redeem option?
So
I believe
people
that's
can
a 5-minute timer thing that you do, right?
It is, and I have no idea where it started. I really don't. I think Tilly did it just to mess with me. But I had a pirate patch for whatever reason, and people can redeem. I think it's 5,000 channel points, so people actually have to save up for it. And we didn't have channel point redemptions for like a year or like maybe 8 months or something. So everybody had like 40,000 points.
Yeah.
So we're like, what are we going to do to like burn these channel points off? Because like to make them actually impactful, so that the economy for channel points actually, is valuable, right? And that was one of the things. So if you redeem the Pirate Paul redemption, then I put on a pirate eye patch, and talk like a pirate for like 10 seconds because I can't hold an accent.
You gotta start talking like a pirate. You'd think you'd be better at talking like a pirate then if you'd put in a little more practice.
Well, my pirate accent is just Irish, so there's not. I'm not a voice actor, I'll tell you that much. But
fair enough.
It is hard to read notes while you only have one glass or one eyeball.
Tilly says he wouldn't do that. He wouldn't.
And then sure he wouldn't. Well, one time he was playing a horror game, Visage, I think it was, and I went on and I added sound alerts so that people could redeem like screaming, so to scare the crap out of them. So we like to mess with each other on stream.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Question from Scottish Jeff: if you could pick only one edition to play and never play others again, which edition would you choose? I've only ever played 5th edition. Well, not now actually. Technically, I can't say that anymore, because recently I went on a stream with Lord Gazumba, another D&D streamer, and played in a one shot as a human paladin inquisitor, 1st edition, 2nd edition hybrid, and it was a lot of fun. I don't know nearly enough about it for it to for it to be my edition of choice. So I'll have to say 5th edition.
I was going to ask you about that too, because I saw all the promo, because I've chatted with Jay a bunch as well. Excuse me. He's live on Thursday nights as well, so he'll drop into our chat. Yeah. And sometimes if we go late, he'll raid us too. But he's an awesome guy, and
wonderful guy. Really down to earth.
I've been wanting to get him on the show, but he streams on Thursday nights, so I don't know how we're going to work around it. Right? Yeah. But anyway,
that was my thinking when I was setting up short rests. I was like, I want to talk with a whole bunch of people from the community and get to meet them and stuff. But so everybody's all over the world, and they have different streaming schedules, different life schedules. So I said to myself when I was setting it up, I was like, it's going to be on a Saturday for me, but the time is going to be anything from early morning to late evening, like just so it fits. I've got that window to move things around and be like, can you do any point on this day?
Yeah, that's really good. That made a difference for me for sure. But we were talking about editions. Oh, right. I saw all the promo for you being on Jay's channel, and I was really, really interested. Of course, for those that missed the beginning of the episode here tonight, I am propped up on a lot of cold and flu medication and hydration and halls and everything. But I've been dealing with COVID diagnosis this week, so I haven't been awake for a lot of the stuff that I wanted to see. But I did want to ask you about that, because I'm curious about playing the earlier editions as well. So
it was tremendous fun. Jay makes it just as easy as anything, because you hear about these early editions being really crunchy and numbers heavy and hard to understand Theco and stuff. Jay's been playing that same campaign for 44 years. and
Just wild.
he knows he's got all of his notes sorted for himself. He knows he's got everything referenceable, and he's got his whole wall of bookshelf behind him with all of his books, and he knows which book everything's in. So if you
Wild.
so for me it was just what do you want to do? And I went, I want to hit him with my sword, and he goes, roll a d20, and I roll it. I tell him I got a 5, and he goes, okay, that'll hit. Like he just
Oh
knows
wow.
that he knows my modifier. He's got all of his players' character sheets in front of him, so he
Yeah.
knows all of their stuff as well.
Nice. That's intense.
And he goes, oh yeah, with your modifier that'll hit. He knows how to use the Thaco enough that it made it super easy, which was fantastic for playing, obviously, and for streaming something so that you can keep it moving. If I was playing in person and we weren't streaming or something, I would have actually preferred to be able to do it myself so that I can learn about first edition and like learn how the Thaco works, because I'm a nerd for numbers and stuff. So I would have enjoyed knowing how it actually works and the experience of that. But it definitely made sense for the situation. But yeah, we got to just focus on the story. The only change that I even really noticed was that in 5th edition, of course, you've got an action, a movement, a bonus action. In the editions we were playing, 1st and 2nd hybrid, it was just a movement or an action, and that's, you do one or the other. So you can either move, up to 10 feet and make an attack, or do some kind of an action, cast a spell or something, or you can use your whole movement, which is like 9 squares, so like 45 feet or something. So it's kind of like the dash action. If you're not going to do anything on your turn, you can use your whole turn to move and get further.
Yeah, and that kind of that kind of brings it back to what we were talking about earlier about the fear of a new edition. Is like I think I'd be so biased and I try not to be, for sure, about a lot of things, but I think I'd be so biased and be like, oh, but I'd rather 5th edition because you can do this and this and this. Do you know what I mean? I think that I would be a little bit more apprehensive about it.
Yeah.
But,
and he was still like, just as any 5th edition DM that's worth their salt, he was still like hand waving stuff to make things work for you. Like I said, like, oh, do I want to do this thing and this thing? Are they both actions? And he's like, oh, you can do that one for a free action. so it was allowing me to do some stuff that wouldn't maybe be a bonus action in 5th edition or whatever. So it was a lot of fun. We focused on the story a lot. I enjoyed all of the other players at the table that we were playing with. His real point of sale there is the incredible visuals that he's using for the whole thing. He's got his enormous table in his basement, and it's just decked out with 3-dimensional towers and set pieces and stuff. And he's got 3 different camera angles on it, and he moves them around to get good angles. So you're like, oh, I'm going to move up to that ogre that I can see. Yeah,
his like terrain pieces and everything are just next level. It's
stuff.
unreal.
So that's the only edition that I've played other than 5th edition. So I'm still yet to get experience with 3rd or 3.5 or 4th edition. I really want to play 4th edition just to see why everybody rags on it. I'd really have and I'd love to get like a proper experience with all of the earlier editions, like play something through as like a 6-episode campaign or something, just enough to get into it and be like, okay, I feel like I
and not just a one shot.
Yeah.
And for my answer is super easy. Mine's going to be 5th edition because that's all I've played as well. And I've heard stories from other editions, and I'm apprehensive about those stories, I guess.
Yeah,
I know it's really vague, but
you're always going to hear like biases from the person.
Yeah, Tilly said that he wants me to try. I think he says he wants me to try 4th edition because of my min-max ability. I think that's 4th that he says he wants me to try. That he thinks that I'll like it. But the more I get into D&D, the further away that I'm getting from that min-max.
Right.
If that makes any sense. So
the things I hear about 4th is that it's hugely combat. It's really good for combat because there's just lots of. It was a mostly combat focused edition, is what I hear. That it had lots of different abilities that you can do and stuff in a combat. The thing I hear about 3 and 3.5, I think, is just how versatile your character can be, because it was very specific with all of the different, it had thousands of different feats and stuff that you can do, so you can create the exact character that you want to play. So yeah, I hear lots about all of the different editions, just want to try them out. The New York GM, whoever that is, somehow is. It's not a name I recognise in the channel. Whoever. I'm teasing her because she accidentally changed her name on Twitch recently to the New
Oh,
York
amazing.
GM. So the New York GM asks, how have your nerves or anxiety changed since you started DMing? You got
Oh God,
less
yes.
nervous, more nervous?
So yeah, I think it truly depends on how much prep I do, to be honest. But um if I have enough prep that I can fall back on something, I'm less nervous.
Yeah.
But without a doubt, I mean, I talk to so many people, I listen to so many podcasts, I consume D&D content all the time, leading up to this, just for Hops and Dragons, let alone for for my own experience in DMing. And I took an interest in preparation when I started to DM. So the official D&D podcast had an episode with Lauren. Oh, what's her name? Her handle is Lauren Obo, and she was talking about preparation. And there's a couple other episodes that I listened to of different podcasts, and basically everybody who was like experts in D&D were saying don't prepare, and like that's not helping me, right?
Yeah.
Like I don't have improv
It's
skills yet,
advice. It's advice
right?
that I hear a lot, and unfortunately, I think it's not good advice.
Yeah, and I get what they're saying because like your D&D sessions can go any which way. So
Yeah.
if you prep a lot, then you might not need it and you just wasted a lot of time kind of thing. So it really didn't. It was just like just do it and like you'll have to improv. And I'm like I don't work that way. So I
Yeah.
got a lot of anxiety about not having things prepped. And I'm like if I don't prep things and railroad you guys, then I have too much anxiety. I don't know what to do kind of thing because I don't have the improv skills. And to be completely honest, now after going through it and doing it, I kind of understand where they're coming from. I still don't fully agree with it, but the idea of you just got to do it. Like
It
you had to do it and you had to
it
kind of jump
takes
into it, right?
it takes
So,
a lot of experience to be able to run a successful game without preparation. So I think you
yeah,
need. I think it's not good advice for new DMs.
for
I
new.
think
Yeah,
it's good
yeah,
advice
exactly.
for people who are struggling with the game after they've DM'd for a while.
Yeah.
And I think that's the big distinction. I don't think it's good advice for new DMs to say like, oh, don't worry about preparation, because I think in order to run a good, enjoyable game for all with very little preparation takes a lot of DM experience.
Yeah. No, for sure. I agree. So yeah, so my anxiety has it's definitely lessened because now I know that I can, as long as I have that baseline, I can
Yeah,
kind of do whatever. And because of the fact that I've improved now and ran with things, and because I trust my players, I definitely have less. I'm definitely less nervous about it. But
yeah,
there's definitely nerves lead into it, like the 2 hours beforehand. It's just like going live on for Hops and Dragons every week. I get nervous before every single episode. It doesn't matter, right? So
yeah. I think for me, I'm lucky that I've never, well, not never, but I've suffered from anxiety very little in my life, and I don't tend to get nervous. I've got a very strong, long history as a stage actor. Since I was mid-teens, so I don't get stage fright. I don't get nerves. I know that I'm good at DMing, so I don't worry about going into it. I know that I'll do a good job. I do obviously get the healthy amount of nerves going into things like filming the next session of Viva La Dirt League, because I know that it's going to be the next 12 weeks of episodes and there's nothing I can do to change it after the fact.
yeah,
So like I make sure that I've prepped enough. But as long as I'm prepped, I'm not nervous, generally speaking.
yeah, it's wild how much that makes a difference, and
Yeah.
like even in real life as well. So like if I go to into a meeting with a client and I'm just off the seat of my pants, I am sitting there
Oh
sweating
yeah.
a brick,
Yeah,
right?
that's when I'd
And
be nervous.
yeah, but if I've prepped something or an end of campaign report or something, and I go into a client and I've got them laughing, I've got them carrying on,
Yeah.
I'm carrying on with them and everything, and
Yeah.
it's just your stuff, and they ask you questions, you just know it, right? So
Hmm.
like the preparation, I think is huge for diminishing that anxiety. And there's another point that I want to make here too, um, is that streaming Hops and Dragons
Hmm.
and being comfortable on camera and being comfortable hearing my own voice because I have a monitor in my ear, which is wild because everyone hates their own voice. And after like 3 months of having this in my ear every single week, I don't care anymore. It doesn't
Yeah.
bother me, right? Um, but but because of the fact that we were working from home for so long, and I was having meetings in this space, in this seat kind of thing, and it was the same seat that I was not only DMing in and playing D&D in, and also doing the Hops and Dragons stuff, the episodes. I had so much more confidence sitting here
Right.
than I
Yeah.
would have had in real life sometimes, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So I remember doing the meetings thing was definitely there, but I also remember doing a murder mystery party. One of my friends put two of them off, one for New Year's Eve and one for her birthday, 2 months apart. And we had gone into lockdown for the second one, but not for the New Year's Eve one. And so the New Year's Eve one, I think we were in person, and I kind of like stayed. I didn't really engage that much. And then the one for her birthday, I was like doing voices and I was carrying on and I was doing everything. And people messaged me afterwards. They're like, "Holy shit, that was great!" Right? So
Yeah,
like the
that's good.
difference of like that comfort level is I think is I don't know. It's kind of an adjacent. It's not really answer the question,
Yeah,
but it's
but it's
definitely
still
there.
adjacent to the topic of nerves and things. Lugnarok asks, "What's your favourite theme or setting to homebrew?" I like island and coastal settings because I wish I had pina colada.
Pina coladas are
I
tasty.
favorite theme and settings to homebrew. I mean, mine is high fantasy, medieval Europe because I feel like I'm comfortable talking about medieval Europe. I know more about it because of popular culture, and I'm a European guy, so I feel like I'm not stealing people's cultural appropriation or whatever. If I was to set something in Asia, like I do have in my homebrew world, different continents, but I chose to set every game I play, I choose to set it in my version of fantasy Britain because I feel like I can talk about that. How about for you?
Yeah, I think mine is so mine's again, I've only had the year experience kind of thing, and then running kind of a modified pre-made adventure. So, but what draws me is like the dark side of that high fantasy
Mm-hmm.
world. So I would say the same, but a little bit of a different approach. So the campaign that I'm running for the two groups is an undead heavy campaign. So it's like it's all zombies and
Yep.
wights and liches and all that kind of stuff, right? So it's like that's where I just love it. There's a Team Necro sticker and icon and emote and everything in our channel. But that's my definitely my theme that I
Yeah.
like. But I really like the dark, like if you could equate it to high fantasy being like Warcraft. We were
Yeah.
talking about that earlier. And then what I like is more like Diablo kind of thing. Like I
Right.
like that kind of darker, dingy kind of grindy kind of thing. I like that a little bit. So
Fair enough.
that
Uh,
would be mine.
New York GM asks, "Are there any NPCs you wish you hadn't created?
Mm.
Any NPCs you regret?"
Um, I don't think so because I love the fact that if the party picks up on it, then that's something I can double down on.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
So I can answer this on Tilly's behalf because he awakened, or sorry, we as a party in his campaign awakened a frog, I think it was, to determine if an army walked by recently or something like that.
See, awakened.
And we awakened this frog or toad or something. I can't remember.
Yeah.
Look, there he is in chat. He really didn't like that frog, but we loved it so much. Loved how he acted it, the voice he did, and
It's
everything
the
that we just
Lord's
wanted
of Thunder.
to.
So
So we,
you made sure it was a recurring character. You bring it with you.
yeah, and not out of you know distaste for him as a DM, but just because we love the character so much. So,
Nice.
um, yeah.
Any NPCs I wish I hadn't created? I don't think so. No, there's a couple of times in the Viva la Dirt League one. I'll just put something in there for like the verisimilitude of the world. Like they walked into a mayor's house at one point, a mayor's town hall, and I just explained that there's like a receptionist in the main lobby, and you have to go in through another door to get into the main the mayor's house. But they were just talking to her. They walked in and they started like exposition dumping as if they're talking to the mayor. I was like, oh, and the receptionist says, "Oh, you want to see the mayor?" And she's like, "Oh, who are we talking to?" I was like,
Yeah.
she's the receptionist, and he's like, why? Then why is she here if she's not important? Kind of thing. I was like, because you're in the world. You're in a world, and the world wouldn't just have the mayor standing in the foyer of the town hall waiting for people to walk in and start talking to her. I was just trying to make it more realistic. But then at that point, they started taking the piss by like asking her all these questions, like delving into her backstory and being like, she must be important, otherwise Rob wouldn't have put her in. And so like I had to just improvise this random woman that didn't even have a name, and give her a favourite fear. So those NPCs probably shouldn't have created. Probably should have just been like, all right, yeah, you go into the mayor's house, hand wave, you're in the mayor's house now.
Yeah, there was one on the ship, and again, I'm running both the campaigns mostly the same. The storylines, exactly the same depending on where they go. There's the captain of the ship that they take to go up north to find what they're looking for. I described him, and I must have described him in a way that I didn't expect, but all the female players in both of my campaigns crushed really hard on this captain. He was like a 50-year-old male with like graying hair kind of thing, and like everyone was flirting with this character.
I've done that before, where I did not expect a character to be described as being like super hot, but I've had like a tiefling warlord. Essentially, I can't remember, Justice, I think I called him, and he sat in like this throne, and I described him, and the player playing the warlock was like, whoo, this guy. I was like, he's an evil warlord, and he's like, yeah, but, whew.
But that doesn't matter right now.
Got a couple questions that I missed earlier. Fulio asks, what's your opinion on OP characters like Barbarian Moon Druid? I mean, I'm fine with it. Like, if they you can always find a way to nerf a character, or to challenge them. If they seem to be overpowered, then that's because they've made choices to be overpowered. And as I said earlier, min-maxing is not a negative thing. It's just a style that player likes to play their game in that way. So to meet them on that level, don't try and challenge. Don't try and force them out of it. If they've put their resources into making that character, it's because they want to play that character. And give them monsters that are equally badass that they can fight off against.
Yeah, I love the idea of leaning into a character's strengths and also their weaknesses.
Yeah.
Like I want to, if you've min-maxed and you've built this like really OP character, then yeah, sure, I'll give you challenges that will entertain you. Otherwise, you're going to be bored with with things that are easy for everyone else. But I'm also going to look for your weaknesses as well.
Yeah.
And not as a malicious way, but like, as you said when you were on our Random Encounters episode and you ruined our outro, which is, our outro is may all your rolls be nat 20s, and Rob pointed out that would be the most boring game of D&D ever. And he's not wrong.
You'd have to switch to a Powered by the Apocalypse, because you're like, sorry guys, I can't play D&D because I've got a curse. What's the curse? Every time I roll a d20, it's a nat 20. Nah, bullshit. No, seriously, look. I went on a Hops and Dragons stream and they cursed me.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Can't play the game.
So I'd lean into the weaknesses as well.
One of the big problems that I see is another problems I see with newer DMs on Reddit and things like that, saying like, oh, my player's so overpowered because I gave him this item, or I made him this, or he's chosen this multiclass and it's overpowered. What do I do to break him, or to? And I'm like, he's put the resources into making that character, so let him play that character. Let him have the thing that he wants to play.
Yeah.
But if every resource he's put into making that character is a resource he is neglected on this other thing, so his AC is through the roof and he's got a 27 AC, then all power to him. Try and attack him with things and have them miss because they can't hit his 27 AC. But
make him do a wisdom save.
But make him do a wisdom save because he hasn't put power into that. So do both, like in equal amounts, regardless of what their build is. Have a variety of everything happening all at once, and make sure that you are targeting him, because like don't allow your monsters to be like, well, I'm not going to go for him because I'm not going to hit him. Unless like they've attacked him a couple of times and realised they can't get through his armour. So then they change their mind because they're smart. And they go, no, that guy's heavily armoured, I'm going to go for the wizard. Those things make sense. Don't punish them for their decisions. I'm going to sort of scroll through.
I just hate the idea of DM versus the player. Like
Yeah.
I really think that the DM is their role is to make the game. And I know this is putting a lot of pressure on DM, so like saying this with a grain of salt, but the DM is kind of, you're there to make the game fun for your players.
Yeah.
If they don't have fun, then it's not necessarily your fault. If you do, if you put
Yeah.
an engaging story and everything in front of them, but like at the end of the day, I don't care what we do as long as the players are excited to come back next week.
Yeah, exactly right.
So
As long as they're excited. The one of the proudest moments in my game with Viva la Dirt League so far is the session before this. As I was setting up, they were talking about the game, and that was the first time they'd done that. They're usually talking about business stuff or talking about the next episode of something that's coming out or whatever. And
awesome.
and before, as I was setting up, they were going, so where did we leave off? What was happening? Oh yeah, we had that plan to kill the hag and blah blah blah. And what are we doing? How do we get around that and stuff? And I was like, yeah, there we go. Now they're getting hooked into my story finally. Yeah. We'll start to power through these ones.
Sure.
What's it called? Lightning round.
Lightning round.
Creative Garden asks, when you're just getting started into DMing, did you do any kind of research into authors' resources like storytelling tips, plot arcs, etc.? Is there any book you'd recommend on that? Joseph Campbell's Hero of a Thousand Faces. It's the most famous one of how to tell a story. There's no new thing under the sun, they say. Every story is a retelling of the same sort of story arc. You can break down Star Wars, Hunger Games, Harry Potter. They're all successful stories lead a general form of the same kind of.
Is that the hero's journey?
Hero's journey, yeah. It comes from Joseph Campbell's Hero with a Thousand Faces, and he's talking about how like every story has the same hero, essentially just told in different ways. The hero's journey, definitely look into that.
Yeah. And to be honest, it's not a book, but I excuse me. I went through Matt Colville's running the game.
Yes.
His entire there's 100 plus videos there, right?
Fantastic resource for advice.
The later ones are a little bit more niche. Some of them are more psychological than like actual noodly, but the early ones they're like fundamentals of DMing, and that's literally what gave me the confidence to be able to do it, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. The Gamers Share says, leaving a session to mostly improv is one thing, but do you think it pays to at least do plenty of world building in advance? Yes, you can't improv if you don't know at least what the boundary is. It's so much easier to make something up if you already feel like you know what's going on, what makes sense to make up in that moment.
For sure, yeah. I remember we were chatting about this a little bit earlier about preparation and notes and everything. Is I know that this NPC knows this, this, and this, and this, and this, and I know that these are the 3 points that they have to tell the players in order to advance the plot line. And I know that these other points are just extra. So if the players stop talking, they can just bring this thing up and start talking to them about it. Or if they ask the right questions, well, here's the information kind of thing. Yeah. That makes it a lot easier for me to be able to improv than just to sit there and be like, yeah, sure, I'll react this way. Because I don't think I'd be able to give my players a proper experience otherwise.
Yeah, got another rules of the game so that you can play in it. Thank you for the raid, Dead Aussie Gamer. And then Dead Aussie Gamer asks the question: how do you guys grow such handsome beards? I don't know about for you, but for me, I didn't actually like my beard at first, but then it grew on me.
Oh Jesus! I am too sick to have to deal with puns like that. I actually used to have a beard down to like right here, to be honest.
Oh yeah, big old beard.
Yeah, but then the whole masking thing, it put a permanent kink in the bottom of the beard, and it was really, really frustrating. So I shaved it off.
Yeah. All right, let's have a look. Question: How evil is? Wait, is he evil or evil? I thought you were asking how evil is evil. All right.
The New York GM says, if you could have a dream DM, who would it be, real or fantasy?
Oh, okay. Dream DM. I'd love to play in a Matt Mercer game. He was my strongest inspiration when I was starting out. Or a Brenly Mulligan as well. I'd love to play in one of his games.
I think I'm obligated as a guest to say you, Rob.
Of course, you have to say me. I won't ever put this out live.
That's right. Payments in the mail, right?
yeah, that's right. Yeah, one day I'd love to run a game for you for sure.
That'd be a ton of fun.
Yeah. All right. Let's see. Have I missed any other questions here? Aside from me, who would you love to have as a DM?
See, I'd like to say Mercer, but like I've just not. I don't think I'm at that level as far as the storytelling RP side of it.
Right.
Right, like that's a
You'd
lot. Like
feel
these guys
inadequate
are,
to be at his table.
yeah. And as much as it'd be awesome to just kind of like be there and experience it, I think there's more value for me at the level that I'm at to just witness it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think Colville would be like it'd either be amazing or horrible because I think he's more noodly,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I think that'd be fun because I do enjoy combat as well. But uh, I've likened them before to like Colville's like Star Trek and Mercer's like Star Wars,
Right, yeah.
right? So like science fiction versus science fantasy.
Yeah.
There's like that's the
Yeah,
distinction for
yeah,
me.
that's a yeah, it's weird how well that fits actually, now you've said it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I'd love to see Matt Colville actually DMing. I don't see it on his channel. Obviously, I've seen him on Twitch a couple of times and popped in, but obviously
Yeah,
you're not getting any context. You're in the middle
yeah.
of a stream. It's fourth edition,
It's
so I
just,
don't understand what's happening.
yeah. I think his campaign is the Chain of Acheron, I think it's called,
Right.
but I haven't seen very much of it either.
Maddie asks, who would you like to DM for? On the other side of things, who would you like to have at
Oh
your
my
table?
God. You go
To
first.
DM for. I feel like there's a lot of comedians that I'd love. Like Jack Black would be great. James Acaster
Oh
would
my
be a lot
God,
of
yes.
fun. Robin Williams would have been a fantastic
Oh my
guest, I'm
God,
sure.
yes.
Just
Yeah.
people who excel in improv comedy without like steamrolling others or steamrolling ideas just for a laugh. Um,
I'm I'm gonna go completely out of left field here.
right,
I'm a huge metalhead,
right,
and there's a band, they're actually a Canadian band, and they're making big waves in the metal scene, which is awesome. They're called Unleash the Archers,
right.
and they're on Twitch, and I think the only content that they do on Twitch is D&D,
Oh,
and they
well.
do it once every like 3 months or something, so it's not even like consistent. But I think it'd be an absolute blast. Like I would love to have them on as a guest
Yeah,
first off. But I think it'd be a ton of fun to DM for them actually.
yeah,
Their albums are all like if you look down through the lyrics of all of them, they're all concept albums and they're all about a hero on a journey to defeat
right.
the
That's
big
cool.
bad evil guy kind of thing, right? So it's like their jam is all fantasy,
It
right?
would.
So I think that'd be kind of fun.
That made me think actually as well. It would be fun to have as a guest like a group of people who are really well known for something but have never played D&D, and so like have new people getting introduced to the game and getting hooked on it, who are already kind of in a tangentially related industry or something.
Yeah.
Maybe they're big YouTube video gamers, or maybe they're like I don't know, Tolkien, the actors of Game of Thrones, or something like that. Like someone who
Yeah.
is like well known for something, and they've all got like this history together already, so they're cohesive around the table, and they're going to be having good fun and in jokes and stuff.
Yeah.
But they've never played D&D. That would be a lot of fun to run a few sessions of that, getting them into the game.
Yeah.
Like
My other
I think
answer was good.
wait,
Sorry.
actually, no, it doesn't matter. Actually, he's played before. I was thinking of the one shot with Stephen Colbert, where he played with Matt Mercer
Oh,
as a one shot. That was a lot of fun as well.
yeah, he's doing that again. I think this year
Oh yeah,
for Red Nose Day, right?
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah, he
so
did
he's
it
he's
before.
doing it again this year. My other answer was going to be for beginners because it's so much fun to see them learn. And there's two beginners at my one of my games that just they don't know, like one of them has never played any video games before, so they don't know the bounds of what they can do.
Right.
But what they come up with, and I've told them, tell me what you want to do,
Yeah.
and I'll tell you how to do it. It's kind of the same way that Jay did with you in
Yeah.
first edition,
Yeah.
right? So, and just like the things that they come up with is like this is brilliant. And
It's
then
a
you've got
huge
veteran
change, isn't
players.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, veteran players will try and stick within the rules and be like, oh, I'm going to do this, so I got to roll this check kind of thing. It's like, no, just
Yeah.
tell me. Just
What we want to
open your
do.
mind up. It is
It
so
is, it is
awesome.
a
So,
huge difference, and it's something I've noticed as well. Like playing with new players, when you tell them, and I know a lot of teachers say like their favorite thing about teaching is when you see a kid who suddenly gets it, and you see that penny drop moment and the sort of kind of expression, and that's the favorite thing. And in a similar way, that's one of my favorite things about DMing is when you see that moment where a new player realizes, oh, I can do anything. And you're like, yeah, anything. You can attempt to do whatever you want. There's no choose your own ending here. There's infinite options for you choose your own ending.
Yeah, I remember that moment when I had it. It was brilliant.
It's so good.
Yeah.
And they do end up coming up with all kinds of stuff that you're like, all right, I want to yes and this. This is way too much for one turn, so I'll try and find a middle ground for them and say like, okay, we'll do this, and you're starting to do this, and then if it comes back around to your turn and you're still doing it, then the next thing will happen, and blah blah blah. And that can inspire the veterans at the table to be like, oh yeah, that's right, we can do it. We can sort of do things outside of the box. Yeah, in a similar vein, I actually did a similar thing with the Viva guys recently, because Alan, who sits on my immediate right, he's playing an artificer. He's not played D&D before this campaign, before the few campaigns that we've played together, and so he's not like a D&D head. He doesn't think about it between the sessions and stuff. He doesn't like get into it in a big way, so he doesn't think about the rules, and so he really struggles with artificer because it's one of the more complicated classes to play. And he's got spells, he's got items, some of the items are active and some of them aren't. Whole bunch of stuff that's complicated. On top of that, he took a few feats when he's leveled up, and it's getting to the point where he's overwhelmed by it and not enjoying playing. So I was like, all right, this session, the session we just played, I took away all of his cards. He's got all of these like flash cards in front of him with all of his spells on and stuff, which the intention of them was to make it easier for him, to make it something to reference rather than just a sheet. But it was having the other effect now because he's got so many in front of him. It was overwhelming. So I took them all away. And I put them behind my screen, and I said, I know what you can do. I pride myself on knowing the rules. I'm very familiar with artificers now. I know what your abilities are. Mm-hmm. Now just tell me at any point, just tell me what you want to do, and I will give you the appropriate card if I need you to read it. Otherwise, I'll just tell you what to roll. And it made a huge difference. He suddenly got way back into the role playing. He thought about his actions as his character and whether his character should be doing the things he's doing. And he made a huge change. I don't want to spoil anything, but he made some huge changes for like how his character's been acting, and took him back to how he wanted him to actually be and stuff. So made some headway in that direction anyway.
Yeah, and good on you as well for as a DM for being able to recognize that and then be able to work with them to be able to make it fun and engaging for him. Again, I think that's really, really important. So
yeah, he said at the end that he had a lot more fun with that session than he had with a few recently. So.
Yeah,
that was good.
It was funny because I have one of my beginner players one of my beginner players is playing an artificer as well, and I was like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Like, I don't know artificers very well at all, so like, you're on your own for this.
Yeah, they are not easy. If I'd have known, like, they were new when I gave him the role, because it was the only class that kind of made sense for him, because his character by definition is the NPC. He's an NPC of a World of Warcraft type game. And he's a garlic farmer, and he's got nothing he can do. He's got no adventuring, and so I was like, he can't be like a monk punching people. He's got no spell casting, so that's all the spell casting classes out. He's got nothing in his entire however many episodes they've done of that series that would indicate that he's any good with roguing abilities. So they came out with Artificer, and I was like, oh, they're good with magic items. He's a shopkeeper. They have done a few episodes where he like buys other people's crap, adventurers, when they come in past. He probably just has an inventory full of magic items, and I thought that's all it would be. But goddamn, if I'd have known how complicated a class they would have been, I'd have just made him a fighter or something.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, we are over time. This has been amazing, but you have to rest up, and I have to do more work. So we're gonna pretty much leave it there. Thank you very much for everybody for joining us. I really appreciate you guys being here. I know I kind of ignore you during short rests, but I do read the chat to kind of keep up with it, and I appreciate all the questions as well. One last time, Paul, where can people find you if they liked all the stuff you were talking about today?
Can find me over at Hops and Dragons. That is at Hops and Dragons on anything, your favorite social media or Twitch. It's we managed to get the same username for everything. So that's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Twitch, everything.
I'm trying to think of one that you haven't listed. What's a?
You can find us at OnlyFans as well, but apparently I'm not supposed to promote that. So. So that was an April Fool's joke. That was an April Fool's joke last year that we did, and it was just pictures of me and Tilly as like friends when we were younger, like old pictures of us. So,
it's only for fans.
Yeah, but and we actually got followers, which is the funny part. But yeah, we stream every new episodes every Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern time here in North America. I'm not sure what that would be your time. I don't know if you can do the math very quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's
Work it out. Let's Google. You guys can find out what the time is.
6 p.m. Eastern time, and every third week Tilly is home doing a regular episode of Hops and Dragons where we go through all the news and see our battle and the useless item of the week and all those kind of things and have a bit of fun. And then when he's gone away, we do the random encounters where I have a guest on to chat, similar to tonight. And on Sundays we just do a chill hangout.
Only with more dancing, similar to tonight, but with more dancing.
With more dancing, yeah. Which if I'm still sick next week, I don't know if I'm going to be doing dancing. So, yeah, 10 a.m. apparently. So
get your guests to dance enough for both of you.
Yeah, that's right. But yeah, it was an absolute pleasure, Rob. I appreciate it. I was looking forward to this all week, and I didn't even let COVID keep me away.
Yeah, I'm glad you didn't. I would have happily rescheduled, but you took a lot of precautions with your lots of drugs and sleeping and stuff to make sure that you were good for it. And I think you were your usual charming self. I don't think the COVID managed to ruin it at all.
It's just the drugs.
So in case you yeah. Is it the drugs that makes you charming always? You always on drugs.
I'm constantly on Dayquil. That's my secret.
It's my secret, Captain. I'm always on Dayquil. Anybody from your community that's joining us as well? I'm Robert Hartley, GM. I'm a dungeon master full time for a comedy group called Viva La Dirt League, and also here on Twitch, and I've got my own YouTube channel as well. So I do D&D related content several times a week, including interactive games and analysing the latest episode and reading books and chatting with amazing people from the community. So if you like, drop a follow and you'll see more of this sort of content. But for now, let's end it there and head off to a raid. Is there anyone in particular that you would like to raid? I see quite a few people on at the moment, including Matt Colville.
Oh yeah, including Matt Colville.
We've got Joe Cats online. We've got the Cantrip Cast. Captain Robez is a rerun. We've got Welcome In. We've got Zebashu, sorry, who does D&D stuff on YouTube as well.
Yeah, I always hate choosing because I want to raid them all.
Goodman Games is online. GenCon TV's online. I haven't raided Z before, I don't think. So if you're all good with anyone, I will raid Zebashu.
Yeah.
Some of you will recognise his artwork as the animated spellbook guy. So stick around for the raid. It's good for you guys because you earn channel points to both of our channels. It's good for me because it makes people in the community go, who's this Robert Hartley guy who's raiding? And it's good for them because they get to show off their content as well. So it's a win-win-win-win-win-win-win. So thank you very much for being here, guys. Next time you see me is tomorrow for Twitch Tales when we are leveling up Apis. Well, we're not actually doing the level up, but we're voting on what we're going to be doing at level 6 and whether or not we will be taking a multi-class level. So be there to help with the vote. See you later.
Have a great one.